Hello and welcome to another Our True History live chat. Recently I've been seeing a lot of people doing religious videos on their TikToks, live chats, and it surprises me how many religious people actually are watching those people doing their religious chats about God, etc. And I do stop and I listen to some of them, and when someone asks a question, they literally make up stuff on the spot. So where someone will say, I'm just paraphrasing here, but where someone would say, the sons of God instead of Jesus stole the women, they would say something like, oh, it's metaphorical, this, that, and the other. But if you're going to go and take that as metaphorical, then you're going to start, you're just basically picking and choosing what you want to be real in the Bible, and that is where I have problems with. So I thought I'd do a little live today, addressing those religious people, because the amount of times I have asked, and you guys know it, the amount of times I've asked for I even do it on other people's videos, especially when people come onto my posts and say to me, Jesus loves you, etc., etc. I say to them, you can go and read my comments. I say, come do a live debate with me. And then no one wants to. Anyway, Phoenix has wrote, hello, hi, hello back to you. How are you? User23 has wrote, hi there. And Phoenix has wrote, grand risings from Palm Springs. Did you ever see that film with Adam Sandberg, Palm Springs? Quite liked it. Showed Palm Springs in a nice light, I thought. Alien War has wrote, hi Alien War. Don't recognise your name, but obviously we don't want a war with aliens because we'll probably lose. Although we will probably be the ones to instigate the war, because our powers that be seem to. Well, I mean, let's be honest. The way progress moves forward is through war. If we didn't have those wars, not that I wanted the wars, but if we didn't have those wars, we would be technically further back than where we were. So that's why they want the wars, to keep evolving tech, and so that they can beat people. Phoenix just wrote, the alien gods sure do love me a lot. Yeah, I had to put the alien part in there. Phoenix has wrote, Jesus is a Christos avatar. There are so many. Yeah, the problem with, as if you've listened to me long enough, you know that I kind of avoid the Jesus side of it, simply because I can only go by the Bible, really. There's nothing to go back to. And knowing that the Bible kind of messed up on the translations, I'm not saying they did that with the Jesus part, but obviously when you actually read the Bible and work out the years, the time period that Jesus was born, it was summer, simply because of the descriptions it gives as to the animals being out of the barn, etc., etc. So we know that the dates ain't quite correct, and if the dates ain't quite correct, then what else isn't quite correct? Is it all the chats between his mates, the apostles, and whatever else? Is that just made up simply because the Bible was, or that parts of the Bible was written 30 to 90 years after the actual events? I would probably go along with some of it's made up, just from the logic side of it, seeing as the dates don't match either. Just scrolling down, Sophia's wrote, bun the Matrix and bun the Elite. I don't know what bun is, but I'll go with that, actually, to be honest with you, because anything to do with the elites, as long as it's not nice, I'm up for. Helveticish has wrote, hello, is it true that the Africans are the only real humans and the rest is created by an Anunnaki? Right, so this is my research, 40 years, and no one's told me I'm wrong. But again, I'm also going by other people such as Zachariah Sitchin. But there's other people that's translated these tablets, but have not come out and said. So you can read the tablets and you can make up your own mind. But as far as I'm concerned, but the way it worked. Sorry, someone just popped up wanting to do a live chat. Last time I did a live chat last week was a car crash. not because of me. So I had a Syrian person wanted us to send him money, and yeah. Anyway, so basically, hominids living in trees. So the closest I've come to it is a Neanderthal. Could be Denivisms, but we don't have enough skeletons to say it was definitely Denivism. So it leans more towards Neanderthal. Living in trees, as they said, and they genetically modified those using their essence, which, if you go by historical mythology, and I don't know whether you want to call it mythology because everything that seems to be myth seems to be real these days. So essence supposedly comes from urine. Anyway, they genetically created a Homo sapien, or you could say Homo sapien if you listen to Sherry. If she's more, if she's listening, she's more experienced than me on that side of it. But basically, it's the first human. I mean, some people say, well, Homo sapiens, first humans were Neanderthals or Homo erectus, etc. That's a debate for those kind of people. But basically, it's the first smart, intelligent species on this planet that they created using DNA or essence. Now, what colour were they? The descriptions of the first one was red as clay. Now, you could say red as in dark red. I don't know. They're in the Abzu, South Africa, so find some red clay and see whether that matches anyone's skin tone. But that was the description of the first one. And then the second one, which was a girl, came out as sand-coloured hair, and I don't think they mentioned the eyes per se is in blue. I'm trying to remember now, but it was basically a light colour compared to, and the skin colour was light. But they ended up having 7 Anunnaki females that would give birth to 7 human males and 7 human females. Looking at the actual area that they come from, Africa, and looking at the population there, I would say African people were the first human people. However, I have to caveat that a little bit because there were Homo erectus and there were other hominids around that bred with the Neanderthals and bred with the first humans that came along. And we've got, I mean, just watch my videos, I keep pointing to skulls and skeletons and whatever else to do with that. Now, whether or not you class those as intelligent, now there was actually another bit of information that I haven't done a video on yet, but you can go and look it up on the Oxford University website where they've done some translations. Enlil come across this race, and he said that they were canine-like, but with the intelligence of humans. And I did look it up, and I'll do a video on that. So in other words, there still was other hominidy type creatures here that did have some smart brain power. But yes, the bottom line is the darker skinned, from my point of view, the darker skinned were the first here on Earth. Even though the Anunnaki were light skinned, obviously they were using the Neanderthal and just upgrading it really until they bred with the humans that they created, and that's when we got the light skin, olive skin. And I think the red hair comes from the Neanderthals, because if you look at the research on Neanderthals, they do say that they're either black and red, I guess, like orangutans. So there is such a thing as red-haired creatures before humans. Phoenix has wrote, all wars begin from within and we wage against ourselves. Very profound, Phoenix. I never can really answer Phoenix on those because she comes out with some very mind-bending stuff. Mike's wrote, were the Anunnaki cannibals? Many giants were in American Native Americans killed. The Anunnaki never wrote that they ate people at all. Or what? Not I've read it. I mean, there's over 2. Well, I think their count was there was over 2 million stone tablets. A lot of them we haven't seen, and a lot of them, majority of them, haven't even been translated. So that's not to say they didn't eat humans, but everything that I've read about them bringing down goats and their barley and eating fish and there's no need for them to have eaten humans. However, the offspring off of the Anunnaki and humans, some of those had gigantism, in my opinion, and they were what we now call the Nephilim. And yes, supposedly, according to the tablets, forget the Bible and everything else, according to the tablets, literally it reads that they ate everything from the fish, the livestock, the corn, and people. So the giants, and when we say giants, they got to have been bigger than the Anunnaki, so it's got to have been bigger than the highest, tallest that we're aware of the Anunnaki, which is about 12 foot. So it's got to have been, 13, 16, 20, however much bigger than that. Phoenix has wrote, humans can only perceive messages from the level of consciousness they are at. So, yeah, Santa Claus. That's another profound thing there, Phoenix. You should do your own show, and you'd mess with people's heads just trying to, get your head around that. Humans can only perceive messages. I mean, it's a fair point, mate. You might be absolutely spot on there. Joseph has wrote, Middle Ease, it's not cold. Middle Ease, it's not cold. I have no idea what that means, sorry. Daryl's wrote, if I could travel back to ancient Egypt, I would be a god. I would love you all. Oh, bless you. I would probably take tech with you as well, just to make sure you don't get, run over or something by a chariot. Phoenix just wrote to Mike's, many races are carnivorous but not cannibals. They go to other realities to get meat. Williams wrote, what did you think about the festival in 2023 Brazil mocking God? I am unaware of that, I'm sorry. Now, if people mock God, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I kind of touch on that when I sort of allude to religious people who, come to me and I kind of knock them back. They never come back because they can't, because I go to the originals. Anyway, technically I'm mocking it, but why should my belief be any different from theirs? Why should I have to pander to theirs, but them not pander to me? Does that make sense? So I have to listen to them when they say Jesus loves you, you're wrong. The God, as I just put up a video just recently, where the guy saying Noah represents the sun and all this kind of stuff, when really we all know who represented the sun, Ra. So why does his belief trump mine? Why can't I make fun of God, knowing, in my opinion, that the gods were Anunnaki, just because there's more of them? That does. If that's the case, if you go down, there's more religious people than me believing that God is real, and then surely, if that's the case, then when it comes to gender, if there's more people believing there's only two genders, then you have to then say, well, you have to pander to the majority, because if I have to pander to the majority by being nice to gods, plural, I have to say plural because it is Elohim, then, where does it end? So, if they mock God and they believed that there was no God or an Anunnaki or whatever, then I think that's up to them. Absolutely. I don't think we should be told just because the majority of people, because otherwise there'd only be two genders if it's down to majority. Phoenix has wrote, to avoid eating their own species of humanoid, different dimensions are different species of human. Interesting, Phoenix. Interesting. I'm just trying to work my head around that, actually. Different species of humans. Jason's wrote, what was? I don't know what that's referring to, whether that's to do with God loves you, or God's love you. Phoenix wrote, different gods govern different dimensions, all are one with source, God creator, fractals, embodiment. That's the problem, is that we don't really know what the source creation, whatever it is. We know the Bible talks about the Anunnaki. There's enough evidence there. If anyone, I could just show you one bit and you'd have to kind of say, strange how one bit is older than the Bible. But when it comes to the that it's a tricky one to know what the overall creation is. Ritz the Biz has wrote, as a Muslim, I think that the Anunnaki story kind of makes more sense. But who controls the soul? God. I still go along with until something else comes along, but I still go along with the Emerald Tablets of Thoth or Toth and the clairvoyance mediums and spiritualists that I've spoken to. That the when the universe was formed, there was entities that were formed at the same time, light and dark, as described in the Emerald Tablets. And they've been at war ever since, and they're eternal. So if whatever created the universe that also created them is God, but not the God that we're talking about in the Bible, but a God of some description or an entity or whatever it was that created the Big Bang, if you believe the Big Bang, then yes, technically everything within that universe would be under God. But I don't think the souls are controlled per se. I think they are, just from everything that I've learned. There's a long story. I did a video, 4 hours long documentary on my Patreon page called "Everything You Need to Know About Spirits," and it literally covers the reincarnation and everything to do with spirits. So I think there is the smaller tennis ball orbs are the ones that want to gain wisdom, and then they move on up a different plane of existence until I don't know what happens after about the third, because although you hear different stories, different religions, Buddhism, etc., all have different amounts of levels of planes of existence, but they all kind of agree that there are levels of planes of existence, including the mediums and spiritualists I've chatted to, where a spirit or person that's died, that's joined with that entity that's floating around, eventually they cross over. So there is a second plane, or a third plane if you class one before us, I don't know. But either way, there seems to be planes of existence that they move on up to. So I don't know if anyone's controlling the souls as such. Phoenix has wrote to Ritz the Biz source. Yeah, that's what I was just talking about. Cuts has wrote, what's your thoughts on the Mayan civilization crystal skulls? So this is live, by the way, everybody. Just I read out every single question. So the Mayan civilization, I think this is just from my own research. Until I come across something different, it's led me to believe that the what is it, Viracocha, the king or the god, was, with the big nose, was a part Homo erectus and part possibly either Anunnaki or part of the demigod. Someone bred with, in my opinion, because the when they do these reconstructions of Homo erectus, they do have the big ears and the big long nose and everything else. So I kind of think that somehow, knowing that evidence have proved that literally everything bred with everything, so humans, Homo florensis, everything bred with everything. So it's not inconceivable to think that something bred and was over in Mesoamerica at that point. So that's where I think. So in other words, it's just another demigod that's in that craft. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, the tomb that's inside, and you're all going to laugh at me, the tomb that's inside the pyramid that we're talking about here, with the god holding, basically sitting in a craft of some description, and he's pulling levers and operating his feet. That's a carving, but it was not a tomb in a pyramid, even though I just said it's a tomb in a pyramid. It's not a tomb in a pyramid, and that's because the pyramid was built over the tomb. So I know I say there's no bodies ever found in pyramids because they're not tombs. Technically, this one still wasn't a tomb built in a pyramid. Anyway, so going on to the crystal skulls, genuinely believe, I've did videos on them where I literally point out where the only person that debunked it was a numpty, literally, and that's because A, he worked for the Rockefellers, B, he was what's the right word, made to look like a numpty, for saying that a particular person was a descendant of Genghis Khan, and his peers all said, "No, you're wrong. You're a numpty." So basically, this guy's just a numpty, and he was the only person that looked at. And sorry, dogs in the background. I got them back just for tonight, one night only. The only reason why he said that the crystal skulls were fake is because they had scratches on, literally scratches. We have no idea how old they are, but they have marks, tiny little marks. I've dropped my phone more times than they probably dropped a skull. So just because they've got marks, he said that's tool marks. Therefore, it can't be alien, and it has to be modern. That's his argument. And my argument is, you're telling me aliens can do magic? They need tools. We're going to need tools. In a billion years, we're still going to be using tools, regardless of what kind of tool it is, whether it's a laser or whatever. So just by saying that, oh, it's not alien because they use tools, that's the stupidest comment ever. Using these as slap for that. And obviously then saying, oh, ancient people didn't use tools. We can't create the pyramids. You can't make the pyramid without some type of tool. So basically crystal skulls are genuine. Now, whether or not 13 of them need to be aligned to create something, I do think that they do hold information in them. Phillips did a thing back in 2013, if I remember correctly, or maybe 2014, where they actually had crystals holding huge, vast amounts of data in them. And unlike what the nowadays are actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but nowadays they're actually using body parts to actually store data in something to do with stems or something, stem cells, which holds again vast amounts, but it degrades. So, logically, the crystals would be the best way of storing information in a magnetic type format. In other words, it's not like what we would see now on a computer, but they managed to do it and store information in some sort of magnetic-y kind of way. I'm not an expert in that. So yeah, I think they do hold some information. Whether you put them all together or not, to create one extra thing, I don't know. MMK has wrote, my cat is transgender. Okay. Okay. Jason's wrote definitely. I'm not sure what I was talking about at that point. Adele has wrote MMK. Question mark, question mark. In other words, how does he know the cat's transgender? And then Holly has wrote, I was saying this to my boyfriend. Where did the Europeans come from? So basically, the Europeans appeared, wait for it, 100,000 years ago. When did the Anunnaki say in their tablets that they physically bred, not created, physically bred with the humans that they'd created 200,000 years before that? When did they say it? 100,000 years ago. When did we get Rh negative? Blood type, 100,000 years ago. Where did we get the blood type? And where was the first European skin colours? Mesopotamia. Where was the Anunnaki at this point? Mesopotamia. Where did they breed? Mesopotamia. You got it. Spot on. That's where the white skin comes from. And Sherry's joined, and Sherry's wrote, hi Sherry. Sherry, if anyone wants to bug Sherry on, that's a kind of her job, knowing, I don't know, forgive me, Sherry, you'll have to write down what you're actually, it's not a paleontologist or anything like that, it's I don't know what the word you would use for you. Tiffany's wrote skin colour. Oh, laugh out loud, didn't know that. Adele's wrote a big perfect laugh out loud, glad laugh out loud MMK. That was to do with the transgender cat. Holly's wrote other tablets hidden because not for the Sherry's wrote anthropologist. I would never apologise to you. It's a bad joke. Apologist. All right, forget it. Well, thank you, Sherry. Holly's wrote, other tablets hidden because not for the average folk. Spot on, yeah. MMK's wrote, my cat is hissing at this. Oh, I'm sorry. But again, people can say things about, all sorts of things, and if everyone's seen, do we really want a world where everyone cancels everything because someone's upset because one person's? I don't think we should. Back in the day when I grew up in the 80s, we were swearing at everyone and didn't care. Was making jokes about every race and everything. It was fine, and because I know they did it back, so that was it. We wasn't a snowflake. We were just, that's it. You just get on with it. Anyway, Holly's wrote, my grandparents travelled to Egypt with my archaeologist uncle. They have many stories, and my gran, I'm waiting to find out what the next part of it was. I can't see the next part, but I bet they do have some stories. Holly's wrote, speaks about them going into the water, Atlantis. Oh, sorry. Right. Okay. So that's carried on. Okay. So my grandparents travelled to Egypt with my archaeologist uncle. They have many stories, and my gran speaks about them going into the water, Atlantis. Interesting. I'd like you to watch my pinned video on where I believe Atlantis is. Funny enough, someone's now changed their tune on who was on Atlantis, but a famous researcher that's steals people's information. Anyway, Tiffany's wrote, gosh, I'm enjoying this. Thank you very much, Tiffany. Snuggers wrote, I talk about all sorts of things on my videos if you're interested. Bigfoot's 40 years of why you lot am fun. I'm literally, while you listen to your radio music, I am absorbing absolutely everything I can. Snuggers wrote, what if we are all different species of aliens on Earth placed to interbreed, and we are watched? What if we're all different species of alien? I mean, it could be. The problem I've got with that is obviously I go back by the oldest text. Now, if the oldest text sort of hinted at anything like that, then I would latch onto it and run with it and see what it takes me. But literally, the oldest texts literally say there's a race that comes from another planet, and I defy anyone when they read the translation where it says Adapa went up to heavens, which is space, and met with King Anu, refused to eat and drink, and then King Anu said, send him back to his earth. Who writes that in the first ever language to write stuff, and they write about as if someone's on another planet? I mean, literally, they probably had no idea what another planet was. They probably could see stars, and they could probably see lights out there. Look, realistically, if I didn't know what I know now, I would look up at the moon and think that's a sun that goes bright and dark, because how would I know that's solid? I might guess at it without a telescope. But certainly, Jupiter, Venus, and Mars, etc., would just be little dots, little shiny dots at night, really, because I wouldn't have a telescope. So who would have thought of writing that, sending back to his earth? And it just so happens the person's name was Adapa, which was Adam, out of Adam and Eve. So anyway, Ritz has wrote, I love your channel. I make sure I like every video you make. I have seen that. Thank you, Ritz. And I do love your comments, because I love the fact that Ritz is a Muslim and is open enough just to listen. I've had people say to me that I'm not open enough to listen to the Bible, but the problem is I have actually read the Bible years ago, and it contradicted itself. There was gaps missing in the story and everything else. And then I found the original versions, which didn't have the gaps and everything. So I think Ritz is an amazing person. Adele's wrote, do you think God is an alien? Absolutely. Well, no, not God, gods. If you're referring to the Bible talks about gods as Elohim, which is plural. Go back to the Old Testament, which is created in their image. Everything's plural. Of course, humans changed it over time, because the last thing they want to do is have, us knowing our true history. But an almighty being, certainly not one that created Jesus, no. I will mock him because I'm smarter than an almighty being. Because if the almighty being, and you all are as well, if an almighty being decides to put down one person to go spread the word and pay for our sins, who cares? Do we care? If I was an almighty being looking down, seeing people, Romans stabbing people, killing people, raping and pillaging and everything else, do you think I would create a son to say, look, bearing in mind you're supposed to see the future as well, God, and create a son and put him in the same place, funny enough, where all the Anunnakis were, Mesopotamia, Middle East, instead of Canada or somewhere else, just so happens. But anyway, it's a stupid thing to do, because once, he never had anything. He didn't. All right, supposedly he could walk on water and everything, but no one seemed to follow him that much. The Romans still didn't care. They wanted him dead. So it didn't quite work. And yet he had sons before that, which no one wants to talk about. The sons of God unto them took the daughters of man. You know what it says. Basically stole human women and had their wicked way with them. So yeah, I mock that because it's stupid. But sorry if you don't agree with me. Holly's wrote, how many people are neurotypical and consider these things? Few. There's a reason neurodivergence is. And then I'm just trying to find the next part of that. But there is no next part of that. Okay. I have no answer. It's a rhetorical question, I'm guessing. So I can't answer that. Sherry's wrote, I've looked at his YouTube and the comments. He's confrontational. I can't remember who I was talking about there. You could probably say the same about me, Sherry, and I could certainly say the same about you. Bless you. No, you know what I'm saying. Firminance wrote, I don't think you were mocking them. I just think your truth is different than theirs. Yeah, I try not to, because my mum. Thanks for saying that, Firminant. My mum kind of wants to believe in an almighty being, so that when she crosses over, and a couple of weeks back, she was in hospital and we thought we was going to lose her. Long story short, doctors said that's it. And every time we went there and she woke up, she actually said, am I on the other side? She was completely, virtually out of it, with them putting gas and air and everything. And she said, am I on the other side? And I said, Mum, they're not that good looking on the other side. I did actually say that. I said, no, Mum, you're still here, I'm afraid. So she wants to be on the other side. So, mocking it and everything, I don't think we should do it, maliciously, because people like my mum want to believe, regardless of whether or not in her heart she knows there's not. She wants to believe. Riz wrote, as a Muslim, the Anunnaki story makes sense, but who controls the soul and the light being in the orbs? I don't think, well, again, there's two main light entities, if you go by the Emerald Tablets. They are, there is a name for them, I forget the names for them, but there's nine orbs in total, 9 larger orbs, not the tennis ball size larger ones. I don't know how big the 2 are, but I can guess the other 7 were probably tennis ball size, basketball size maybe. I don't know. They didn't really describe it, but I would imagine they're the larger ones. And the 2 main ones that Thoth or Thoth, however you want to pronounce it, went to see, what are they? Do they answer to God? I don't think so. I think all the other light entities answer to them, but not to an almighty. I might be wrong, but they didn't say it. Jun has wrote, if our soul chose a certain life be murdered, can that be stopped or altered? Excellent question. Go number 1 in the class for that. So basically what Jun's asking is, because basically the way it works is there's a council of 7. So do you remember I just talked about 9? There's 7 of the 9 that all have a job to do with a spirit's, a light entity, a light being, whatever you want to call it, an orb. I'll call it an orb from now on. An orb. So an orb will go in front of this Council of Seven, and each one of those deals with a different part of the orb's future. In other words, what they're going to be doing inside the next person they join with. And the orb makes a contract. I mean, I heard this when I was at school about you make a soul contract with God before you join with, become born. And it turns out it's actually an orb that does it. It's not us. But anyway, so the orb. So can you? Well, the answer would be yes, because the amount of stories out there where people get run over, and partially die, have a near-death experience, and then get told, no, it's not your time. Now, so if that can happen, in other words, if it deviates from their plan that way, and they wanted them to live longer, could they also do it the other way round and actually not be killed by a murderer, which is what you're asking? Can they not be killed by a murderer and actually live longer? I would logically say yes, because if it works the other way around, why wouldn't it work that way around? So I guess there's a way that it might work. Yeah, so good question. Hopefully that kind of answers your question. Snuggers wrote, when we die, I believe our energy goes back to the universe. So from what I've learned, there's a soul group of 6 of these, at least 6, I say at least, light being entity orbs that are all part of one group. And it doesn't have to be your spouse. It could be the next time that you go round. It could be your friend. It could be your mother. It could be anything. So 6 of those all connect with each other in a way throughout the life, and then they just, you die, you float around for a bit because you're connected like a hard drive to this orb, and eventually the orb takes back over again and goes back round again. Cherise wrote to Riz, study Sufi Muslim, they know all that. Riz has wrote, in Islam, Jesus is coming back, which makes more sense as the Anunnaki story. I mean, there was a guy today talking about Jesus being God, and Jesus was who did he say it was? Jesus was Enki, I think he said, and I was like, no. I mean, Enki. We've got Ea, which was the original name for Enki. Ea came down 450,000 years ago, did everything that they say he did in the tablets, because I can't doubt them. And then just 2,000 years ago, Jesus suddenly popped on the scene. I can't say, how the hell could Enki be born to Mary when Enki created the humans in the first place to be able to create Mary? It just doesn't make sense. So is Jesus coming back? I have no idea. I mean, Jesus is, like I said earlier, I struggle with the Jesus part of it. I'm not saying there wasn't a character called Jesus, and I'm not saying it wasn't a hybrid, but coming back, people have been saying that for, I know people's been saying it since World War One. I've seen I've watched enough documentaries to see the letters that people wrote saying, Jesus will come and save us, all this kind of stuff. So they was expecting it then. How many more wars and murders and whatever else prior to that? He hasn't come back. He's not going to. It's not going to come back. At what point does he come back? When we're all dead? Yeah. Where's everyone gone? Crap. The elites have already done the depopulation. Oh well. Damn, I was a bit too late. He's not going to come back. Jack has wrote, there is only one God. I think I joined late. No. Well, if you're referring to the Bible, I have to totally and utterly point you to the facts that the Bible does copy the original text. And if you don't believe me, just either watch my videos or do a little bit of research. That's all you have to do, a little bit of research. But they don't want to. No one wants to do that. But if you're referring to only one God as in the source or creation, that the Bible is not talking about, then I can't answer that. And whether you want to call it a god, I mean, technically you shouldn't call it a god. Let's be honest, you shouldn't call it a god because the Elohim translates into gods. So the race name for the aliens which came here, the Anunnaki, the race name is Elohim. So we should never be calling the creation. That's why the aliens, when they abduct people, when they talk about the creation or source, that's the name they've told abductees, not God. They don't mention God. They mention source or creation. So you joined right at the right time. In fact, if you're hopefully still listening. Av has wrote, evening sir, sorry I'm late. I got caught up on the mothership discussing the flirts. Brilliant. Oh, please tell me you've changed your name and you're the other guy. What was his name? I've forgotten his name, forgive me. But brilliant, that's a good one. Firminance wrote, soul in Hebrew is nefsi, W, which literally means breath. Interesting, didn't know that. Thank you for that. Riz has wrote, finally you agreed that there is a higher power, dark and light entities which humans can't control. Yes, that's correct, yeah. We don't, yeah, they're nothing to do with us really. I mean, they join with us, but they do whatever they want, I guess. Xaz has wrote, it's Winnie Woo. Oh, hi Winnie. That was the person that said about the mothership. Brilliant. Hi Winnie, how are you? I saw your rocking out video earlier. Williams wrote, Earth is flat. The problem with that is I will ask for the dimensions, the diameter, and you won't be able to give it to me. And then I'll say, well, how do you know where the edge is? And you'll say, because I've watched YouTube videos. And that'll be the end of the conversation, I'm afraid. Because if you don't know where something is, you can't say that it's something for a fact. You're just guessing. Tobias has wrote, all Egyptian gods are the DNA, a crossbreeding animals and Enki blood. I wouldn't say that because the Thoth ends up being, or Toth, some people call him Toth. Thoth ends up being Hermes in Greek, but also was Ningazida, which was an Anunnaki, so he wouldn't have been a crossbred with the Anunnaki, with Enki, because he was already an Anunnaki. Ra was also Marduk, so therefore he wasn't a crossbred with Enki. And Ptah, which is the top Egyptian god, was Enki himself, which Ra was his son, Marduk. So I would probably not say that if that was me saying it. Van Roo has wrote, what's crazy, all joined. What's crazy is Bible says something like their God is the real God, but that's implying there's others. Yes, spot on. Spot on, and well done. Go number 2 in the class for that. And the reason why I say that is because, for example, the Mormons literally was a guy, I know I'm breaking it down simply, but it was literally a guy that went round to loads of people and said that God spoke to him and told him that all the other gods are fake that came before him. So he waited a hell of a long time before he decided to say something. But yeah, the point is, I mean, you've got the 12 Sumerian gods, then you had the 12 Egyptian gods, then you've obviously got sorry, not 12 Egyptian. You've got the Egyptian gods, then you've got 12 Greek gods, and then you've got... The reason why I stopped on the Egyptians is because obviously there was a period where Nefertiti and Akhenaten was literally told to denounce the other gods. So again, there's another one there. So that's why I didn't really say 12. And then you've got 12 Roman gods. So yeah, I mean, there's 4,000 religions right now. So yeah, you're spot on. You can't have one god saying that there's no other gods, because who's to say that the other gods are not going to say the same about that god? Tobias has wrote, the Great Pyramids are energy magnification devices. Technically, there's only one Great Pyramid. I'm guessing you're on about the pyramids in Giza. My research leads me to that the Great Pyramid was a power device, you're right there, that would produce a beam of light out the top. And people laughed when I said that on one of my videos, before I then did another video showing the evidence of the holes at the top of the pyramid and the fact that the shafts don't go out from the King's Chamber and the Queen's Chamber, go out to Orion. They actually turn and go up to the top of the pyramid, to the hole. They didn't laugh then. Not one. That got 3 million views. Not one person said I was wrong out of 3 million. But the other ones where I said, "Oh, there's a light beam that comes out." Yeah, right, idiot. But the second pyramid, the Khafre pyramid, I think was done by Thoth. Ningazida, the same one that designed the Great Pyramid, but he done that, I think, as a way of leaving his body to be able to go to the underground. In fact, that just the other day, someone sent me a video of a guy saying that he was in. I'm not sure if it was a Great Pyramid. Yeah, it was a Great Pyramid, and he had an out of body experience, which was quite interesting. So I think, and I don't know how much you know into the pyramid shapes, but there's been so many people have actually recreated various experiments using a square or a pyramid, and they would put fruit or plants underneath. And every single case where there's something underneath the pyramid shape grows slower, and that includes bacteria. So a plant will grow slower, but so will the aging process of decomposition or even life. So there is something to the pyramids that the shape certainly does have an effect on various different things. Riz has wrote the Anunnaki could have been jinns, angels that were sent by God to help humans. The Anunnaki could have been jinns. I mean, everything that I've learnt with the jinns is they are literally like the light energy beings. They can possess people's bodies and float around and everything. I don't think the Anunnakis ever mentioned they could do that. So I can't see that being like that. Elim has wrote, have you spoken with anyone that received similar 1.6 during 1.6 gigahertz during the UAP activity similar to Skinwalker Ranch? Okay, brilliant question. Okay, number 3 in the class for that. So basically what this person's talking about is, I don't know if you guys have watched the latest Skinwalker Ranch series, but they kept coming across this frequency, and it is basically, it's an alien type frequency, for want of a better word. And this person's asked me if I spoke to anyone that's received. No, I've heard of frequencies a lot over the years. However, no one sort of pinpointed it to 1.6. So I'd hear frequencies did this, frequencies did that, blah, blah, blah. But no one actually had. So when I watched that Skinwalker Ranch and they pointed it to 1.6, I thought that might be all, that may have been the frequency that I've heard throughout the years. So yeah, really interesting to have that frequency there. I'm absolutely looking forward to the next season of Skinwalker Ranch, which I'm guessing you are as well. This is live, by the way, if anyone's watching. Afghanis, sorry, crap at pronunciations. Salam and hi, how, again, pronounced H-A-I, I don't know how you would pronounce that. To everyone, hi there, welcome to this madhouse. Sherry wrote anthropologist. I can't believe I even pronounced that right. Octis has joined and wrote hello. Mr. Inappropriate wrote, oi, oi, stranger, hello there. I saw you did a live today. I was going to watch it, but I had to go out, so I apologise that I didn't. I was really interested to see what he was talking about. Martins wrote, who does Anunnaki think God is? They called it the creator of everything. That was the translations. So whatever the creator of everything is, whether that's an entity, a sentient being, a computer code, they didn't say. they did say that they believed the creator of everything sent down an emissary, in fact, that called Gaozu. So, they're from that understanding that they believe that the creator of everything is watching what's going on in their minds, because they wouldn't have assumed that Gaozu was a emissary if he wasn't. Interesting though, we've not, well, I say we haven't. No normal person's come out and said that they've seen an emissary in modern times. So why would the Anunnaki have seen an emissary of the creator of everything? What made the Anunnaki so special at that point? Or do our military, or do our royalty, or anyone else actually get messages from the creator of everything as a emissary? I don't know the answer to that, but I don't know. I would probably imagine not. I'd like to think not, because the creator of everything's got to be smart enough to know what our elites are up to. Junas wrote on your Patreon your story about a boy that was missing for 5 years. I think the little person took him. Yes, thank you, June. Yeah, so I have a Patreon page, and I've been putting up true stories that I've heard over the years. Put another one up today, in fact, another two. And so the story that Jun is mentioning is about a little boy that was... Sorry, I'm just going to let some dogs out so they don't whine in. Little boy was with his mum out in the forest, and his brother, and they went... Sorry, I'm just trying to let these dogs out. Go on, get out. And they went... and the little 5-year-old boy suddenly disappeared. And the mum and his brother shouted for him and everything else, couldn't find him. And basically 5 years later, after police and everything had been looking, could never find him. 5 years later, he knocks at the door. He's now older. He still talks like a young 5-year-old. And his mum, obviously beside herself, I'm paraphrasing and I'm being very short here, but if you want to watch the full videos, they're all on my Patreon page. And she asked him where he was, and he said he could see her. His words were, "I could see you, Mummy, but you couldn't see me," which clearly means he was either behind a veil or in a different dimension, but still could see. Anyway, she asked him how he survived, and he said, with the little people, which is a really interesting story because, as you may know, little people are featured literally in every continent and virtually every country around the world. I mean, you got leprechauns. Go look up the names. There's hundreds of names for them for each area that they were seen. So I think there are little people that could come in and out of our realm, if that's the right word. But I think while we turn everything into concrete jungles, we don't see it because the material that's needed in the ground or in the rocks are not here anymore to create that opening. It's a really interesting story because genuinely it was a true story. The kid did go missing for 5 years, and then suddenly turned back up. 4-1 Light Swords wrote, "Let's normalise disrespect." You should. That's a good point. Junas wrote, "Even though the boy said, oh, the little people took care of him, I think it was that made him disappear." I thought the same thing. Well, yes, yeah. I thought, why would the boy suddenly disappear? And yet, his parent, his mum, and his brother at that point probably walked exactly where he was. I would be going frantic. I'd be running around everywhere, and I would probably go to the same point where I last saw him, which was pretty much, I'm guessing, where he would have disappeared. So why? What opened up and took him? That was my first thought, that the little people took him. Which then you go along the missing 411, and you start thinking maybe these little people, and I've heard so many stories about little people. In fact, if you're a Patreon member, which you sound like you are, thank you very much. I'll be continuously doing more stories to do with little people that I've heard over the years that I may not have said on here So they're coming. So just keep a lookout. Massagerus has wrote, "Do you believe whites are tainted human bloodlines?" I think they're offspring off of the Anunnaki and the humans that the Anunnaki created from Neanderthal. So, do you class that as tainted? I mean, technically, if you go along that line, then the darker skinned people are tainted because they got essence of the Anunnaki in them. So you could say they're not fully of this earth, unlike the Neanderthals would have been. So does that make, when the Anunnaki then breeds with the humans that they're technically created, does that make their offspring less human, e.g., the lighter skinned ones, because the Anunnaki were pale, the lighter skinned ones less human? You could, if you go along that line, if you go along that thought, you have to be careful here, because if you go along that thought, if a black guy and a white girl got together, or vice versa, now, and had a child, you would then have to say that that child is lesser than equal of them, because now it's a generation down. Because what we're really saying is the whites are a generation down from. I mean, you could argue that the darker skinned are our forefathers, and we are just like we used to call them half castes, but I don't know what you call them these days. I can't remember. So I don't have memos on things that keep changing, but you know what I'm saying. So are we? I'm white. Are we? I think we are. Again, just like, if a dark skin and a white skin got together and they had a kid, does that kid mean any less? Probably not. Are they less human? No. But I would say the white skins are more alien than the, because technically they physically bred, which gave Adam and his, Adam and Eve and whatever else, their longevity of life. So yeah, they are more alien than they are human, I would have said. Obviously, down the line, we've bred with everything and whatnot, which is why we end up with, Eskimos and different kind of skin colours, Chinese and whatever else, because I think they, in the areas that they were at, humans bred with whatever was around at that point. And again, not me making it up, is just look at the amount of, and sometimes they find just one fossil of, or one skull of a species that's half this and half that, and they never find another one so far, but it does show that everything was breeding with absolutely everything around the world. Lynn Samder, I can't pronounce it, sorry. Sander Sommer has wrote, "I lived on Atlantis Road, Tim. One time I was there for 600 years, 2 times for 900, that's 12,500. I lived on Atlantis." I don't know what the R Tim means. One time. I'm guessing you would say that was with your. Let me have a think now. So if that was you as a, I'm assuming that was you, or the orb that was joined with you, that was with a human on Heraclean, which is my version of Atlantis, which I think I'm pretty much right. Would you have been there for 12,000 years? So let me think, because if Heraclean, and I'm more than likely right, sunk 9,000 BC, give or take, when the what they call the Pyramid Wars was happening, which was written in Sumerian, so we know that there was a war going on, and we know Iana went round literally warning cities to evacuate. So, I'm sorry, this is how I work. So you've got that at 10,000 years ago. So we then have to work back Was there humans on Heraclean for 12,000? Because unless you was an Anunnaki, which I don't think they had spirits with them. Watch my videos, or let me. I'll go into explaining why. But so 12,500 years. Would Heraclean have been there for 12,500 years with humans? Now, there is a possibility. Yes. Would 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 sorry, my brain's just going through it all. Would Ningazida have been there 12,500 years before on that place, because he was the actual god or main person of Atlantis? And again, Heraclean has his temple there, so it matches my description. Would he have been there 12,500 years? Possibly, yeah. Now, obviously, humans were around 350,000 years, but they're only allowed to be taught just after the flood, which was 10,000 years ago, BC. So, yeah, okay, I'll go with that you could have been there on that time. Massageurus has wrote, I believe Adam and Eve were earth-coloured. Doesn't say. It doesn't say, which is a real shame. Not because of any other reason. I just like to know everything I could possibly know. We know that Adam lived for 900 years, and that's literally broken down in the tablets. There's smarter people than me that's broke that down, and I've read the translations of them breaking it down. I mean, they wrote them in books, so you can go on. And this isn't Sitchin, this is other people. So would Adam and Eve been dark skinned? I mean, you've got an Anunnaki that's white. You've got a darker skinned human, in my opinion, and they breed. Does it guarantee always that it's going to come out dark or light or olive? I mean, I've always assumed from my kind of research the fact that how many white people there are on the planet, etc., and where they all come from. I would have said Adam would have been probably olive or very tinted darker skin than pale skin. That's where I would have went with that myself. Firminotes wrote, was the moon landing fake? I think it was, yeah. I mean, obviously that you can imagine. I also do look into conspiracy, and I've looked into it a hell of a lot. And I would say certainly the first few were fake, yeah. That's my opinion. I won't bore you with the details. Simons wrote, what if Jesus God tried to make it seem like he was the only one to control people? Now, apparently there was religions before Jesus. I was reading, I might be wrong. So he would have been better off starting a religion than trying to control people by saying he's the son of God. I don't know. He's on his own. Would he want to control people? Why would he want to control people? To do what? I mean, if he was the son of God, he wouldn't need to control people, because technically God could just wipe us out if he wanted to. So why would Jesus want to control us? To do what? I mean, at that point, 2,000 years ago, there was millions of people around the world, Australia and everything. He would have to go to every single country on his little rowing boat. I can't see it myself. Jonas wrote, Anunnakis did not want to cut the skin off so they could tell the difference means same skin colour. Interesting point there. So what you're saying? So basically, the Anunnaki, when they first created the first humans, they said they look like us in every way, except their manhood didn't have a particular bit of skin on it, which is why people end up getting that cut off nowadays. So could they have meant that in terms of skin colour as well? I guess they could have. The problem I have is every single time Enki has his wicked way with someone, uh, they end up their skin being bright and pale and Lamash. So, for example, Noah actually said, did to his wife, did she cheat with the Igigi? What? Because the child was bright compared to him. So I would still go along with the fact that they are pale skinned. But it's an interesting point. But until someone can actually, give me, I know I've had so many people say that the Anunnaki were dark skinned. And I literally, I just say to them, no problem, just show me where I can see it. And they point to the face on one of the carvings, say, there you go, it's a black man's lips, or it's a black man's nose, or it's whatever. You're talking about an alien race that's not from Earth, and they're trying to match a human that was created by Neanderthal and Anunnaki, and then saying, look, their face is a black man's nose, or their beard, even though they braid it. Look, black people braid their. I think they're just trying to shoehorn a version in, because when you look at many of the carvings, the nose is thin, the lips maybe slightly big, but doesn't necessarily mean I've got probably big lips. Yet my niece, her top lip is really thin. So does that make me black and her not? No. So until I kind of get any evidence, text wise really, than just images of the carvings of them, because we are talking about an alien race. We're not talking about, if they were black people carved and they look like black people, then I would say okay, but we're talking about an alien race. Logan's wrote one God and his name is Yeshua Hamakashishwa. I can't pronounce that. Please still be around, because I will ask you one simple question which you won't be able to answer. I'm trying to pick one simple question, really simple for you. I suppose the obvious one. So you believe in one God because the Bible was changed from plural to single, so you believe the human version that's been changed. Is that correct? You don't believe the original version, such as the Old Testament, that was plural. Do you get what I'm saying? So which one do you believe? The human edited version, and it's edited by humans, or the original version of the Bible, such as the Old Testament, that's plural? You can't pick and choose. You've made your mind up that you're happy to believe what people edit. You've said that by writing one God, unless you've not looked at the other, in which case that's your fault for being a numpty for not looking, because there's more than one Bible out there, as such, in terms of the different types, the Old Testament, the New Testament, and whatever else. So if you didn't look that up, that's your fault. But you must know that there's an Older Testament, and you've gone for the man-made version, the edited version, because I could give you. I'll sit there with my laptop and I'll knock out a new version for you. Because if you believe what someone else has edited and literally changed, Enoch's not in there so much, from the older one right down to the new one, I'll do that for you. I'll give you a book, and you have to believe mine. You have to believe mine. Why? Well, you believe someone else's. Why can't you believe mine? Oh, because it's not old. Is that your answer? You see my point? Just because a human edited it doesn't make it real. So you won't answer that. He's probably gone. Seven has wrote, is there any life after death for us according to your research? Yes, but for a short period. So we join with the light entity orb as it's like a hard drive. It joins with us when we're 3 to 4 months in the mother's womb, as the Quran says. And then when we die, we're attached to it. We float around. We do whatever we want to do. And then at some point it crosses over to another plane. And that's not me saying, that's what spirits have told clairvoyants and mediums that. So that's where I get that information from. So they cross over, and then we're just another file in that hard drive, another memory in that hard drive. And that hard drive orb goes back round again in someone else and starts all over again. And if that person remembers that life, they'll say, oh, I did this in my previous life. No, you did not. You're just accessing the memory that's stored in that orb. Just like if I took my hard drive to another computer, doesn't mean that computer had all my files created on that computer. It means that computer's accessing files that I created on a previous computer. So yeah, there is life after death for a short period, and then we're gone still. Firmament wrote, when the Bible says no one comes to the Father except through the Son, is it in reference to the Son? When the Bible says no one comes to the Father, I don't remember that part, to be honest. So I'm going to take your word for it. Except for the Son, when the Bible says no one comes to the Father. So to me, the Father is Enki. Literally, the tablets call him the Father. So he's the Father of humanity. Except for his son. Why would someone want to go through his son? Now, if it was his son, it would be Murdoch. That's not the case, because obviously people, he did deal with humans as well as obviously Adam and Eve, stuff like that. So, would it be the real sun? Would it be the sun up in the sky? Would people need to go through the sun? No, not that I'm aware of. So I think it's probably just another one of these things where they add stuff to the Bible just to sort of pad it out, in my opinion. Winnie Sav has wrote 6:30. So this is live. I'm just behind on the chats because I read every single thing out. Thank you, Winnie. Riz has wrote, I hope and pray for your mum gets well. She did get well, thank you, but she's it's thank you for saying that. It's a hard thing because she kind of wanted to go because she knew whatever's going to happen after that is going to be pain, whereas she wasn't really in pain in the hospital. So, she was. Yeah, it's a tricky one. We want her to stay around, but from a selfish point of view, but from a logical point of view, it would have been better. I know it sounds so bad, but she just sits at home on her own, day in, day out, falling asleep and in pain and everything. So from a logical point of view, it would have been better for her to have gone when she was in the hospital. Well, now she's, we're having people having to go round there and look after her, and it's just So sometimes greed, wanting to keep her is sometimes not the right answer, really. I know it's a horrible thing to say. FH has wrote, please discuss Hindu gods and Anunnaki relation, if any. So there's. Thank you for asking that, because there's not many people actually asked me about these, and so there is a correlation between is it my brain's gone. Is it not Buddhism? Yeah, Buddhism, and so for example, Shiva and you're going to kill me now. Shiva and the other one. What's the other one's name? Oh, you're all kicking yourselves. You all know it, and I'm kicking myself. Shiva and Vishnu. There we go. Didn't think I'd remember it. There is. I kind of think they're one of the same. I know Indians will probably hate me for saying that, and Buddhisms or whatever will hate me saying it. But when you do the research, it basically a lot of temples that look like there's one near Angkor Wat that is supposedly forgive me which way round it is, a Buddhism or an Indian temple. I can't remember which way round it is, but it's actually not. When you go in there, there's things like lingams and stuff that literally, and the four faces on the carvings of them, and no documentaries have ever been done on it. And they've got the four faces, and I'm trying to remember. It's a lot to remember. One of those gods, you can't have four faces, but the other one does. The whole long backstory to it. So I think they are if not one of the same, they're certainly related to each other, in my opinion. And forgive me for not narrowing it down exactly. I'm still learning this myself. So, it wasn't, sadly, and I say sadly, because there's so much stuff. Literally, India has everything we need to know about hybrids, weapons, giants. Oh, the list goes on, and they carved it, and a lot of the temples are still there to this day, which show us what we need to see. But obviously, sometimes we don't even understand what we're looking at on these temples, which is why I'm still learning. So forgive me if I can't give you the definitive answer yet, because I literally pretty much every morning I'm going through Indian stuff and Buddhism stuff, because as this is the thing, what I do is I can't just look at one thing. I can't just look at Anunnaki and forget Greeks and Egyptians and everything. You have to look at it as a whole. And obviously a lot of people don't look at Buddhism or Indian religion together because they kind of feel like they should be clashing. So they don't look. But I have to look, because when you look, you realise that it's not as black and white as it seems. There's a lot of overlap. So forgive me for not giving you... I am still learning myself, and as I go along, I'll drip feed what I learn. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know, but I'll drip feed that through my videos. So thanks for asking that, but I can't give you a definitive answer at this point. Pam has wrote, I've seen a basketball-sized orb. What was it? So I can pretty much guarantee you saw it outside, out in maybe in a field or hovering across tree line or bushes or something like that. I bet it wasn't inside. And the reason for that is because they are, from what I've learned, they're the version up of the smaller tennis ball size. In other words, they've learned what they need to learn. One could call them a spirit guardian, not an angel. Forget angels. No such thing as angels. Angels were messengers, as written. And even the Hebrew translation says messengers. So I think they're when I was talking about the planes of existence, I think those are higher up on the planes of existence, and they're the ones that will create crop circles. So I think they're I don't know what you would call it, more mature, maybe. I don't know if that's the right word, or leaders, or in charge. I don't know what the word would be, but yeah, they seem to be the ones that can do more than what the small orb type ones, the tennis ball ones, do. Tugwa has wrote, orbs are real. I've seen many of them. I'd love to know, because sometimes people say they're blue, sometimes they're white, sometimes they've seen faces in them. I always like to know what people see. Riz has wrote, how can the orb be so intelligent? Somebody must control and guide them. No, if you watch my video on Patreon, which is 4 hours long, everything you need to know about spirits, I wrote everything, because I even looked into whether or not energy can be alive, sentient, alive. I actually looked into that. And why would I look into that? Because I can't just sit here and say orbs are alive, they're energy, plasma or whatever type of energy, without knowing that energy can actually be alive and sentient. That's how I roll. So watch my video. I know it feels like I'm pointing to my Patreon page, but I show you the links, and I show everything, and it's edited properly. It's not me filming a computer screen. 4 hours long, and you'll see where basically energy can be alive. So if energy is alive, then therefore the orbs won't need anything controlling them, because they are alive themselves. Ellie has wrote, have you read the Book of Enoch? Yes, I have. I've even done, on my Patreon page, I've even broke it down for people to understand, because not a lot of people and there's things in there that I think I know it sounds big-headed, but there's things in there that I think I'm the only person that's actually worked out. I've read it so many times that I feel that I'm right when, like the night and dark, when they're fighting, these are more than likely the jinn and the light beings, but no one sees that. They just read night and dark. But you have to start using your brain and think, well, hang on a minute, when the universe was formed, would there have been stars and suns, etc.? No, it would have been just blackness to start with. Sun didn't suddenly appear. And of course, even in the middle of a galaxy, for example, there may not be a star. So when they say light and dark, they're not physically talking about light and dark. They're actually talking about entities as in good and bad. So yeah, Book of Enoch. Yeah, sorry, I digressed there. But yes, definitely read it. Tugwa has wrote, he said, I'll be back. I'm guessing that's Jesus. That's where Arnie got it from. Johnny's wrote, Christ will be back in 2028, brother. Mark my word, you'll meet him then, if not sooner. Now that's interesting because obviously people have said it on other dates that's come and passed. So obviously I doubt if I'll be here 2028 with the way that the world's going. But so Jesus looked at his calendar and thought 2028. That seems like a great year to come back and do what? Who told you 2028? Sorry, I have to. This is how I work. You're going to hate me for this. So who told you 2028? Was it Jesus himself? Or was it written somewhere before Jesus was even born? You know, like a prophecy. So I'd be interested to know the answers to those questions. But you know he's not coming back because he would have been back during World War One, World War Two, the Crimean War, the Vietnam War. He's not coming back unless he comes back when all the wars are over and the elites have won, and we're down to 500 million. And I was about to swear there. I was about to say what piece of work Jesus would be to come down after the elites have done what they need to do. Seriously. What a piece of work. Because if he can see what's going on, he's waiting till it's over. And the word chicken keeps coming into mind at that point. So, no, it's not going to happen. And then Johnny's wrote, and Christ is not God, he's God's son. Brilliant. So, he's one of many sons, isn't he, Johnny? Hopefully you're listening. Oh, by God. No one wants to debate with me. So what about the sons that physically stole human women? And if you don't know what I'm on about, then you have no idea about the Bible. Genesis 6. Xavs wrote, which is Winnie. It's Winnie too. Hi, Winnie. Well, am I that far behind? Extremers wrote, hello, I'm of Anunnaki blood. How is everyone today? We're all fine, hopefully. I'm guessing that's RH negative. Ellie's wrote the Book of Enoch. Have you read it? Yes, I have. As I say, I break it down for people to understand. Tugwa has wrote, I've pled with them, take me for a ride, but they haven't abducted me yet. I know, what's his name? Dr. Stephen Greer does that, doesn't he? He goes out and tries to get, not necessarily UFOs to pick them up, but certainly to show themselves. Tanya has wrote, any information on RH negative people just tuned in? Yeah, very brief because I've kind of mentioned it before, but basically Anunnaki blood type, 100,000 years ago, Middle East, and that's why there's only a smaller amount of them, and that's why in fact the British medical CDC thing says that it's a disease, the RH negative. Truth TV wrote, hi Truth TV. If anyone wants to watch anything to do with the conspiracies that's going on at the moment, and we all know that there are, click on Truth TV's and follow him, and he puts up all what's going on to try and wake up the world, bless him. Extremers wrote, Sumerian ships are cool, they can change shape. The only reference I've got to one of the Anunnaki ships changing shapes, and I know you wrote Sumerian, but obviously the human people didn't have craft, was the fact that the wings opened up on their craft when they came into the Earth's firmament, which is atmosphere. that was the only reference I've had to them changing shape. I'm not saying they didn't, but that's... Truth GVs wrote, hello, hello. This is live. It's just I read every single question. Tugwashers wrote, the Queens deceived the world. The Queens deceived the world. Not sure what that's referring to, but you could be right. Riz has wrote, the Bible says God said, I am jealous God. So how many gods are there? I am a jealous God. Yeah, I mean, if you read the Bible, you'll find that there seems to be the wrathful God and the kind God, and which is obviously Enlil and Enki, because one minute Enlil's trying to murder us, and next minute Enki's trying to save us. So, but obviously Bible people don't want to know that. They want to believe that God is evil at some points and nice at others. It sounds a bit like someone that's been out on a drink and avoid him when he's drunk and when he's happy and not drinking. Anyway, yeah. Extremers wrote, when I saw one up close, it had Ugeric. What was? Sorry, I'm trying to pronounce it. Urgeic. Ugeric. Never heard that one. What country was it? Urga Sumerian symbols on it. Urga. When I saw one up close, so this was an Anunnaki craft. So I'm just going back now. So this was the person that said that the craft can change shape, and you're saying that you've seen symbols on it on the hull of the ship. You wrote. I'm struggling to grasp this. So I'm guessing this modern times that you've seen a ship and you would assume it's an Anunnaki ship, or how would you know it's not some other ship with a symbol on it that you don't recognise? If you could let me know, because I'm a bit confused on that one. Johnny's wrote, that's funny. Colburn Bible from Egyptian talk about God's people escaping. I'm not sure what I was saying to make that's funny, but again, if you read the Bible and I read the original version, I know which one I would go with. And if you read the translations, what I did the other day, where they was talking about slaves escaping, which predates the Bible, so I'm guessing you're referring to something similar to this. On my videos, I read out where a tablet was saying about the slaves escaped and what they did to try and capture them. So, yeah, that was definitely around. Johnny's wrote, from Pharaoh while seeing two suns in the sky. Sorry, that's carrying on. Sorry, it carried on underneath a couple of other things. So I'll reread it fully now. That's funny. Colburn Bible from Egyptians talks about God's people escaping from Pharaoh while seeing two suns in the sky, which could quite easily be UFOs, obviously. I mean, how many times do we look up and see a bright light, and is it a star from, because you've got to remember, if we call our sun the sun, but we call a star, which is another sun, a star. But back then, were they calling all the stars suns? I know the Anunnaki or the Sumerian tablets talk about stars in the sky and the sun. So to see a second sun in the sky, obviously we don't see a second sun in the sky, we see stars. Chances are it was probably a UFO that they would have thought. I mean, look at the Star of Bethlehem, which flew, hovered in the sky. They thought was a star. So, Rizzers wrote, there's a book authored by Mike Barra, Technology of the Gods. He goes into details of pyramids. Yeah, I think I've heard his name before, Mike Barra. Yeah, I think I have. I don't think I recall reading that one. Yeah, I try not to read, as you know. I try and work out stuff myself. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I try and do that. Tugworth wrote, kings and queens can't do that, considering they've conquered and smoked the entire world. Sorry, kings and queens can do that, considering they conquered the. I don't know what I was talking about for the kings and queens to be able to do that. I'm not sure what that is. I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. Truth TV has wrote, this channel was very good. Thank you very much, Truth TV. And if anyone's interested in conspiracies, and when I say conspiracies, the crap that's happening now, and it's not a conspiracy, it's fact. Follow Truth TV. He's putting out a lot of good stuff. Triple X or Double X Dream has wrote, blue skinned iridescent skin gold sheen. If that's the creatures, because you was talking about seeing a craft that had a symbol on the bottom and it changed shape, if you're saying that the creatures on that craft, because you haven't actually said that, but you've just wrote blue skin, I would say no, that's not Anunnaki then. Johnny's wrote, pyramids were just structures they thought would survive passing of Nibiru. Johnny's wrote, pyramids were just structures they thought would survive passing Nibiru. So if you're saying they built them as an air raid shelter, shall we say, from the planet Nibiru coming around causing destruction, have you seen inside the pyramid? Literally, there's no point in them making passageways and chambers and granite boxes if it's just to hide people. And they would really need to do it a bit bigger than what they did inside, because some of these places you have to literally crawl up. So I would say no, it wasn't built as a air raid shelter, if that's what you mean. XX Dreamers wrote, there's 8 of them right now. That's, I'm guessing, the alien craft that you're talking about. And then wrote, they do love our art and creativity, especially choreographed music. I wouldn't say they were Anunnaki, blue, translucent or transcendent. Iridescent skin gold sheen. I wouldn't have said that's the Anunnaki. Riz has wrote, are crop circles made by aliens or are they fake? Your opinion, please. So I've done many videos on it. Basically, there are fake ones that were deliberately done by people that was paid by MI5 or MI6 back in the 80s, and still to this day still have people doing it, being paid. But the genuine ones, literally the crop grows a 400% yield. They have microwave frequencies that expand the nodes on the corn that makes them bend, so superheated basically. So many more reasons why, whereas the man-made ones, they break the stalks at the bottom and whatnot. But yeah, so basically who done it? It was the larger orbs. Why they do it? Watch all my videos. Why they do it? I think it's because they give information to. They're not for us. We there's no way we can go up high enough back then, and these have been around for hundreds of years, at least hundreds of years written about, let alone probably the times before that. So we had no way of getting up high enough to see what the images are, and we're not smart enough to decipher them anyway, so it's kind of pointless for them to do it for us. So they are doing these pictographs for an alien race up in space, so that obviously the alien race can see it and know what's going on with Earth. That's my take on it. XX has wrote, okay, just sharing what I've experienced. No problem at all. I don't think they're Anunnaki, but I'd love to know more about that particular race that you're referring to. Tug has wrote, my ears have rang loud, long time. It feels like I'm ascending. Isn't that there's a thing called titanitis? I might be pronouncing it wrong. That where you have a ringing in your ears. I don't know if that's it. Truth TV wrote, so Project Bluebeam is going to be activated to freak the public out. So that's referring to the hologram technology that they've had since the 80s. I know that because I heard about it from whistleblowers back in the 80s. So it's not a modern thing. And the idea is that they was going to pretend that there's an alien invasion, set up this thing on your phone, which they've already done, and it's called Armageddon Alarm, which all phones will have. It will tell us what to do, and we'll be told either to go to their camps or stay indoors. And at that point, they switch on these devices that they've already put around the place during lockdown. You might know them as towers, with a certain frequency, and that frequency will affect whatever's been put in something that's now inside you, and you drop dead in your own home. No one knows any difference because no one's going out, because this Armageddon warning's told everyone stay indoors because this alien UFO is going to come and attack us, even though we would have been dead years ago if aliens wanted us dead. But there are numpties out there that will believe all that crap, that the government, that TV's. My brother, I saw him today, and he has no idea what's going on, and he's actually, adamant that whatever is said on the news is correct. No idea whatsoever. Me and my sister were taking a mickey out of him, and he's going, "You're fucking stupid, you're idiots." And he's the sad one. He's the sort of person, when he wakes up, when he finally realises what is actually going on, because he was on about the 15-minute cities. He was going, "No, they're not what you think. They're not going to lock you in." And I'm like, "Alec, no, you're an idiot." They are. Just because they're not doing it now, it's like everything that they do. Just like when they say, "Oh, we're going to put the price up on petrol, but we will bring it back." No, they're not going to bring it back down. No, they never will. It's control. But he's a sheep at the moment. So yeah, Truth TV does all these kind of things. If you want to go and follow the Truth TVs. Sorry, just run down. Ritzers wrote, in Islam we have two angels, orbs, appointed to every human, writing down all the good and bad deeds. That's interesting. I would say that they would probably be guardian spirits. You can have more than two, but yeah, that's what I would say they are. Interesting. I've not read that before, so thank you for that. Yeah, not angels, obviously, because angels. When you've got the word messenger, why would you think is angelic when you go back to the original tablets and see that the Sumerian texts talk about messengers? It's doing the same sort of things that angels were doing. The angels go, "Hang on a minute, messengers," which are Anunnaki. "Hang on, Anunnaki, you're taking over our jobs here." No, it's one of the same. Ballsy Entertainment has wrote, "Have you have all the answers?" Question mark. I don't think you do. I don't remember saying I have all the answers. I'm learning. Obviously, he was trying to knock me down there. But then Sherry's wrote to the same person that was just trying to knock me down. "Don't leave. He answers all the questions, and he's about 40 minutes behind." Thank you, Sherry. Double X has wrote, "I think the lizard people and the Anunnaki made people too." I see. Again, I know people keep going on about lizard people, but the earliest proper record of any lizard people was Edgar Allan Poe's Tarzan book about lizard people living in the earth. Other than that, you've got people like David Icke saying that a squash statue, or little carving, in fact, or small carving, statuette, it's only, 12 inches tall, where it seems to be squashed. It should have had a hairdo, but the hairdo's come down and pushed the face out. Because we've actually got ones where they've actually got the tall hairdo. And yes, the Anunnaki women did do up their hair. I think Sakurai Sitchin said it beautifully once. When they wanted to doll themselves up, they would doll themselves up to the nines, I think is what his words were. And they did. They used makeup. They even had earrings. Even the men had earrings. They had literally their earlobes had the holes in with the rings. Now, whether or not their earlobes were long already and they put the earrings in, or whether or not they stretched the earlobes with these hollow rings, I don't know. But Yeah, so you got people like David Icke talking about lizard people, but he points to a little figure of the one of the Anunnaki women that ended up being squished, and saying that looks like a reptilian face because it's now it's not elongated, but it's stretched out at the front. That's his argument that the Anunnaki, even though we've got probably 1,000 odd that I can point to, carvings and statues of Enki and Lil Ninata and all these other Anunnakis, women as well. Not one of them's got scowls or a towel or forked tongues or pointy ears or or lizard eyes. Nothing. Zero, zilch, nada. So I don't know why people still go on about lizard people. They may be Dracos and there may be lizard people, but the Anunnaki do not appear to be lizard people. Sorry. Tugwash wrote, little people, they live 2 to 3 miles away in no man's land by Little Solder Creek. Interesting. I'm guessing that's a sort of a local sort of story that you know of. In fact, there's another story I did do on my Patreon page for the true stories, which was the boy that saw the pipe, or not saw the pipe, saw a little, basically almost like a leprechaun that was fishing with and it just literally disappeared in front of the boy, but his pipe dropped, and the little boy picked up the pipe and went to his parents. The parents didn't believe him. He put it in his drawer at night, and next morning, I'm not going to tell you what happens. You can go to my Patreon page and watch the videos there. But yeah, again, little person. User 99 has wrote Saturn Moon Matrix ? I'm not aware of that, so I'm guessing you're saying that's either in the Matrix or that's creating the Matrix. I can't answer that because I'm not looked into Saturn's moon as a Matrix thing, whatever you're talking about. So sorry, I can't answer that. Kitty's wrote, sorry, what do you mean by little people? So all around the world, there's so many names I can't even begin to tell you the names of them, but Smurfs, leprechauns, trolls, pixies, hundreds. Literally Hawaii even has them. Indonesia had them. Pretty much everywhere has these stories of these little people. And in fact, there's been evidence found of little people in the base of Mount Ararat. Now, guess what? The people that researchers that had found these little 1 to 2 foot tall people, skeletons, guess what they called them? Pygmies. Now, were they pygmies, or are they just calling them pygmies because the last thing they want to do is say, yes, there were little people? And then you've got the other smaller, even smaller people, which I've done videos on the little skeletons, where they've... it's hard to describe. You have to watch the videos. But basically, there was a skeleton found in... Where was it? I think Mexico. Forgive me if I've got the area wrong, but basically it had this ridge on its crown, had a long head. You probably know the one. It's about 30 centimetres long, and it was verified to be real. And they said, mainstream said, it's because such and such to do with Mexico, end of. However, Tutankhamun had a box with another, and these are both female, another one. In his box, we've got 2 photographs, genuine, of 2 of these. One from Egypt and one from, again, forgive me if it might not be Mexico, but not Egypt, not Middle East. So there you go. So straight away, we've got 2 genuine skeletons of 30 centimetres characters, female, with ridges on their head. In other words, not human. Genuine skeletons. So yeah, definitely little people were around for sure. I know people could say, "Oh, well, they're yeah." Because the story goes, if you're interested, the story goes for Tutankhamun's was it was his unborn child from some woman that he might have had relationships with, even though he was a teenager himself, and so the child died. So he took the child and put him in a box and had him buried with him. That's pretty much the story. Anyone believe that? The fact that it's got a ridge and it just happens to look pretty much identical to the one somewhere else in another country. Yeah, I don't think so myself. Alfredo's wrote us, "Hello sir, hello class. I was repairing my warp drive, which was damaged going through the firmament." Oh, oh I was waiting for you, Alfredo. Winnie came out with a good one earlier as well. I thought it was you actually. Bloody firmament. Okay, I'm just scrolling down. Tugwa has wrote morphs. I'm not sure what that's referring to, and then wrote mutts. I'm not sure what that's referring to. Sorry, don't hate me. Skidley has wrote, "You mean mixed race?" Yes, that was it. Yeah, sorry, I don't need to say that word much. Not because I'm racist, because I just don't need to physically say that word. And what I do, I don't really deal with mixed race people. So, and that's again nothing to do with racism. My best friend that I work with is mixed race, but I never call him that because I see him as my mate, and that's the way I see him. I don't even, ages ago. I know I've told this story once before, but ages ago, about 5 years ago, we was working together, and he was talking to someone else, and he called himself black, and I looked at him for a second because I was shocked because I don't see him as black, even though he's mixed race. I don't see him as dark. I don't see him as any colour. He's my mate. But anyway. Alfredo's wrote, "The correct terminology is Oreo 50%, 50 or 50. So this is the thing. This is why people shouldn't get annoyed. Just because I don't say something that's been changed from what I last remember, such as what was it? Half caste. That's what I used to call. And even because I brought this up to him, and I said, "Do you know I got told off on a live the other day for calling you a half caste?" And he goes, "Why? What is it?" He didn't even know. He goes, "That's what we used to say." I know. I said, "I know." We used to say half caste, quarter caste, going down. But I shouldn't be penalised because I didn't have a memo on all the different things that people now want people to say, such as pansexual or gender this or him, her, they, whatever it is. I shouldn't be penalised for that. I don't have a memo. I ain't got time to sit and read everything that everyone wants me to bloody change to make them feel better. No, you probably don't care what I think, so why should I care what you think? Sorry, scrolling on. Just people chatting. Skidley's wrote, "I've been having some woman trouble." Okay. My girl said she would leave me if I didn't stop eating pasta. Now I'm feeling cannelloni. I'm terrible at pronunciations. I ruined that. I know I did. Kind of lonely. Yeah, I get it. But I ruined it for you. Hopefully other people read it. Palula. This is live, by the way, everybody. Palula has wrote, "The original human is the KHOI people. Blacks, whites, and Asians are mixed with each other." I do agree. Blacks, whites, and Asians are mixed with each other. I don't know about the original human as the Kaholi people, or however you pronounce that. Not heard that. Skidley, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. "I'm feeling sad today, those guys. If I tell you guys why, I promise you won't laugh." I feel a joke coming on here. Ritz has wrote, "I'm an Indian, blonde hair, blue eyes, white people." Sorry, I am Indian, blonde hair, no comma there. "I am Indian, blonde hair, blue eyed people, or superior experiment conducted withstand pain." You, sorry, I'm not. I'm probably not reading that right. Um, I know they did do tests, and I think redheads came out as the highest pain threshold. I'm only going by MythBusters, if I remember correctly. And if you swear, you can also have, if you're in pain, you swear, you can have a higher pain threshold as well. Skidleys wrote, because my Korean friend died yesterday, he was so young. I knew there was a joke coming. Very good. We're going to get all these jokes tonight, aren't we? Paulo has wrote Koyo, oldest people on Earth. Do you know I've not come across them? Where would they have come from? Sherry seems to know. They still carry the European DNA. Interesting, because if they carry the European DNA, if we go by my assumption that the darker skinned Africans were first and then the Europeans came after, then the Koya people, if they did carry the European DNA, chances are they were after the African people, in which case they were just no different from, as you said earlier, the Chinese and everyone else. Skidley's wrote oh god, a dyslexic. This is you've done this for me, haven't you? Skidley's wrote a dyslexic walks into a bra. That's my one. That one. Thank you for that. I'm probably going to have to stop reading your things only because, although they're funny, I can see you writing every time you write. It's a joke. They're good ones, but maybe you should do your own channel on those because they're quite good. June has wrote, other than whistleblowers, are there any text that proves there were Chinese-looking people in Ma? In Ma. I'm trying to find the next part of it. In Ma. I'm guessing that's Mars. Because there were stories that the Chinese people were originally from Mars and they came down to Earth when they was having problems. I would say no to the Chinese people on Mars simply because, yeah, I know Mars is a big planet, but the Anunnaki were on there, and they didn't mention them. That's not to say there wasn't a race on there, because or that they left prior to that. But again, the Anunnaki didn't, because if they were smart, they would have asked the Chinese people to help mine the gold for them. So I don't think there was. Were creatures on Mars. I've done a video on my Patreon page about what type of creatures and stuff and why they would definitely have been creatures on Mars, but not. I don't think there was Chinese people on Mars. I mean, the chances of another humanoid species, just like the Anunnaki, in our solar system, same height as us, that when they created us, ended up being the same height as us. I don't know. Yes, we did have hominids here on Earth, but that's fine because obviously it's confined to Earth, and we've got many types of dogs, and we've got many types of other animals and stuff. But the fact that on a third planet we've also got another humanoid. Now I know they do scientists do say that the perfect species in terms of development for anywhere would be at 2 legs, 2 arms, front face and eyes. So it's not to say that they're not, but I don't think, my own personal opinion, I don't think the Chinese come from Mars. Junas wrote, and of these Martians left Mars, maybe they moved to Venus instead of Earth. Again, if you, a fair point, but if you go along with the Venus story with what's his face, you're all going to shout at the screen now, aren't you? You know the one. It's coming to me. Give me a sec, everybody. Valiant Thor. There we are. He's had normal hair, didn't have a beard. If you go by the pictures and believe that, and he came from Venus, and he in the photographs he was of pale European looking compared to Chinese. So I still don't believe he was from Venus, but that's just my take on it. So yeah, I still struggle with that. Alfredo's wrote, "Why did Krishna have blue skin?" Don't know the answer to that yet. I'm still learning, as I mentioned earlier. I'm religiously going through, not religiously, but I'm thoroughly going through the Indian and even Pakistani and Buddhism and anything to do with that. I'm trying to lap up as much as possible, so I don't know the answer to that at this point. Sorry. Riz wrote, Adam was the only man without a belly button. Think about it. Where does that come from? Because if we go by the Anunnaki story that Enki bred with two human women and they gave birth to Adaba and Titi, Adam and Eve, why wouldn't he have had a belly button? Now, if you said, I'm just thinking, even the first human over in the Abzu, South Africa, before Adam came along, yes, there were people before Adam. If they, because Nimna, or Ninhasag, as she was later known, Nimna gave birth to the first human, which was Adamu over in Africa. Would he have had a belly button, seeing as she went to term with him, and so he wasn't a test tube baby. She literally went to term with him. In fact, they went to. There was a few others that died, and I've read the actual translations out of that where the other ones died, and this one was finally fine. So would he have had a belly button? I would have thought so, because how else would he have got the nutrients, etc.? So I can't see Adam not having a belly button. So I'd like to know where that comes from. If it's a Bible, then then we can take that with a pinch of salt. But if it was Sumerian tablets that said it, then I would love to read them. Quinoxes wrote, hello, hope it all is good. Hi there, this is live for everyone listening. Hello, and Lewis has joined. Hi, Lewis. Hello, everyone. Hello, boss. Hi there. Paulu has wrote, Black Bantus have 15% GOST DNA. Europeans, Neanderthals, and East Asian have Denivisms. Yeah, see, that's the thing. That's why the problem we've got is we've only got a tiny, tiny bit of. In fact, we've only got a fingernail. Not a fingernail, but tip of a finger for Denivism, as far as I'm aware, that we know is Denivism. So, who's to say that there wasn't another species of Denivism that also had 50% Neanderthal, and therefore we're all saying they're separate, but who's to say there wasn't? Because we just don't have enough to go on. Again, I always use the analogy, in a million years' time, if they find a little chihuahua or a sausage dog skeleton, and then they see a Great Dane, are they going to say they're both dogs when they first look at them? Probably not. They're probably going to say, oh, look, there's one species of little animal, rodent, chihuahua, and oh, look at this thing. This was massive. Skeleton-wise, they don't look anything like each other. So they would need to do DNAs to find out. So I'm just saying that because we don't have enough DNA of Denivisms, who's to say that Neanderthals and Denivisms weren't 50-50 at one point? So Riz just wrote, all the old texts talk about a virgin birth. There must be some truth to it. In terms of Jesus, yes. And in terms of the first humans, not Adam, because he wouldn't have been a virgin birth. Well, okay, caveat that. So, yes, technically, go back to the South Africa, Nimna would have been impregnated with an injection of some sort, I'm guessing, not by Neanderthal having relationships with a 8 to 12 foot Anunnaki woman. So that's a virgin birth. So roll on to Adam. Now Enki pretended they weren't his, even though they were, and he told his vizier to go and put the two children, in a basket and have them come down the bloody river, and that his advisor would find them and then bring them to him and say, look what I found, these two new sort of humanoid species. And I say new humanoid because A, the colours would have been different. I would assume that they would have been lighter colour. Not light, but lighter. And two, possibly the hair colour would have been different. So that's why he obviously went down that road, because otherwise he would have just said, oh, look, here's another two humans that we've already created. But because they were different from the other humans that were already around, that, to me, actually, thinking about it logically, that would have made them different colours, skin colour. Do you not agree? I'm just thinking, why else would he do that? Because if it was just exactly the same as any other human that's around, he would have just said, oh, they're fine. But he'd done it in such a way that that people didn't know, and he also admitted at that point, and he didn't even know at that point, that later on he would call them the more what was it? Not sophisticated. Was it sophisticated? I can't remember if that's the word, but he called them something similar to more sophisticated. I can't remember if that's the word. I don't think it is, but something similar to that. So in other words, the ones that he had genetically bred with to create Adam and Eve, those Adam and Eves were genetically smarter than their parent, than the mum and the people before that. More civilized. That was it. Civilized was the word. More civilized. So yeah, I would say. So went off on a tangent there. So going back to the virgin birth, he wouldn't have obviously said it was his, and he didn't. It wasn't until the tablets that talk to when they're on Nibiru, not when Adam went up to Nibiru, and there was a couple of other Anunnakis with them, and one gave King Anu a tablet that King Anu read, and basically it said, Adam is my child. That's when. So other than that, no one else would have known. So could that have been classed as a virgin birth because two kids float down the river in a reed basket? Probably not, maybe, but certainly the first one with the injection, yes. Just scrolling down. Tugwas wrote, God has apologised for what's to come, but there's nothing to fear. It's going to be a blast. That's scary. It probably will be. Alfredo wrote, the story of Jesus is also told through the Hindu text written 600 to 1,000 years earlier. See, I'm still looking into all of the Hindu and all that kind of stuff, but I've had people saying that Jesus was Thoth and things like that. It's just that doesn't make sense. But yeah, that I wanted to be invited. I'm probably not going to be too much longer. This is live, by the way, everybody, and Alfredo's gave me a time check of 6:05. I'm 2 hours behind. Wow, sorry about that, everybody. Ritz has wrote, and then Sherry's wrote 7:05. So okay, I've gained a little few minutes. Ritz has wrote, Anunnaki statues remind me if Muslims with big beards and heads covered up. Yeah, I mean they do. They got turbans and they got the big beards, but was it a Muslim or did the Muslims copy an alien race that just so happened to wear turbans and have big beards? That's where I would go with that. Why would we? Yeah, we've copied them. Scrolling down, Sir Misters wrote, believe in nothing till it can be proved or proved otherwise. Lewis has wrote, what do you think Nibiru was like? Tropical or cooler with volcano as atmosphere? Good question. Go number 2 in the class for that. So everything I've read, pretty much stone buildings, which makes sense because when they come over here, they can carve Christ knows what. Some of these magnificent buildings that we've got in India and Jordan, and obviously there was magnificent buildings in Iraq, but a lot of them were destroyed and damaged by either wars or their own wars with nukes and stuff like that. So they've got stone buildings. I think their planet is majority water like ours. The reason why I say that is because they were exploring their ocean because they used the same swimming suit that they used as a pilot, as a spaceship suit. Because that was the first time they'd left their planet to go to the asteroid belt to try and mine for gold. So they said that they used their I can't remember the words, underwater suit or something like that. So I think they were definitely got water on their planet. Yes, they do have volcanoes, and yes, they were trying to. That was the whole point of them starting the thing. It kept the warmth in and the heat, cold out. So was it tropical? They had fruits because when Alalula ate his first fruit, and it was described on that ours was sweeter than theirs. So they had fruit. I don't think they would have had. Obviously, we've got sun really close to us compared to where they were. So I don't think they would have had a lot of probably green grass and stuff like that. I would have thought it would have probably been slightly different colours, because I think from my old school days, to get the green colour, it's to do with photosynthesis. I might be wrong. So I would imagine they would have had different coloured plants, maybe purple leaves and stuff like that, maybe. But climate-wise, when they landed in Eridu, they complained that it was hot, and they complained all the time they were here. Obviously, to us, they were here 400,000 years. To them, if they slept for the time that they're supposed to sleep, for pretty much 7 days and 7 nights, was just one day to them. So for them, they were only here for a few years in their time, but obviously in our time it was hundreds of thousands of years. But they still complained that it was hot. So I would say it wasn't as hot as, obviously, Middle East is a hot place anyway, so it certainly wouldn't have been like that. But yeah, I don't think it would have been tropical, just because of where our sun is. Tugworth wrote, the Book of Mormon was very enlightening. Yeah, I'd struggle with it though, when you've got a guy that literally tells people that he spoke to God and God told him that the other gods were all false, and then later on, after he manages to get people to follow him and his mate then both say that they've seen God and God told them something else. Just a bit too convenient for me. Just a bit too convenient. Why him? Why not? If you're an almighty being, why not just tell everyone all at once? Really, just all this he said, she said crap. You know what I mean? If I was that powerful, I would just tell everyone and be done with it. Instead of saying, do you know what, I'm going to make one person have to do the work and go around and try and persuade other people that I'm real. Da, 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 da. Just the more I talk about an almighty being in terms of the things that he's done or supposedly done, the more I think he's not very smart at all. And I'm not knocking him, but just the logic. If he's not the smartest cookie in the shed. Sorry, Sir Misters wrote, but that body is being controlled by the orb, so that orb did so also. Well, I don't know what I was talking about at that point. So that body is being controlled by that orb, so that orb did so. I'm not sure what that was referring to. From what I understand, the orb doesn't control us. That if it joins with us, it just basically it's like a hard drive. It sits there, and sometimes we can leave our body in it, just as you would when you die, and have an out of body experience, and then it comes back to us. Healing Connection Kimmy has wrote, so you're saying we are an orb for a while, and then we're just gone. We're joined with the orb. Just like imagine a computer, a file, I write a massive story on it, I save that file, and it's saved in my brain and on the hard drive. So while the computer's on, you have what they call read access memory, RAM. So it stores the RAM. As soon as you turn that computer off, you've saved it, but you've still got the document open. So you've saved it in your hard drive, which the orb has taken. So the orb is the hard drive. But your read access memory, your RAM, still shows it. You can unplug your hard drive while you're still working on your file. But once you try to save it, obviously the hard drive's gone, so it won't save for good. But you put the hard drive back in, you've got an orb, which is the hard drive, that's learning everything. That's all they do. That's what they do. They're there for wisdom, knowledge. That's all they're trying to achieve. So it stores your memories and basically it connects with you, symbiotic, however you want to describe it, with the pineal gland. And then when you die, it's like switching off a computer. The RAM ends. You turn the computer back on, the RAM's gone, your file's gone, but it's still saved on that hard drive. So the hard drive, the orb leaves your body, but you're now somehow in control of that orb. You're flying it around, you can manifest things, you can do all the sort of things that the orb can do on its own if it's not being controlled by you. So you're in control from everything I've learned from mediums, spiritualists and everything. Even Dolores Cannon, you're in control of that orb. And then at some point, whether it's 2 minutes after you've passed over or 1,000 years later, whatever it is, you cross over again. And that orb takes control back, and it just repeats back round again. Just scrolling down. Riz has wrote, who created the Anunnaki, their souls or their orbs, or one created God? Chemicals. Chemicals did. And if you don't believe me, just have a research now. I did a video just recently showing what particular chemicals, according to scientists, can create life. That's it. It's as simple as that. And everything's made of chemicals: space, rocks, ground, dirt, everything. So when you've got chemicals bashing into each other over billions of years, and like I say, scientists now say that they can actually create life from just chemicals when there was no life before. That's it. There is no need to add a god in there if we can now create, because we're now the gods by bashing these chemicals together, or whatever they needed to do to get these chemicals together. Are we God? Does that make us? Do we created that in a simulation? Are we gods just because we've now created life from nothing? Are we the gods? Are we? Is it going to go back round again? I don't know. But yeah, that's who created the Anunnaki, in my opinion. Healing Connections wrote the same thing again. Alfredo's wrote Hindu Mahabharata. Yeah, I mean, that's, like I say, the Indian texts are are probably even better than the Sumerian texts. The more I'm learning, reading them, they're sort of an intermediate between the Sumerian texts that weren't allowed to really say much, or if they did, we haven't seen them because of powers that be hiding them, and nothing. So the Indian texts are the ones where they're like, hey, we're going to write about it. We're going to talk about the nuclear weapon that goes off that's as bright as the sun and da-da-da. And they do. And they've carved so much stuff. It's fascinating. Tugwas wrote, the medieval carvings and wall art on United Nations churches is also evidence something wrong. I'm guessing that's medieval. I haven't seen it, so I wouldn't know. Sherry's wrote, thinking about your mum, I'm sending her healing to ease any suffering. Oh, thank you, Sherry. Thank you very, very much. Oh, and Tugwashers wrote, praying for your mum. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, it was Mother's Day today, and we went out for a meal, but my mum couldn't make it with us, which was a shame. She only told us half hour before she said that she just can't go. So we still went. Not, we'd sort of booked the place and stuff, so we had no choice. But yeah, and there was some of my family there were mums anyway, so it was nice for them to feel appreciated. Alfredo's wrote, last week I went through the sobering reality of my mum making me and her executor and guardian. Yeah, it's if you can do it early, I know, the truth of the matter is everyone dies. So if you can do it early, it's going to save a lot of pain down the line. Alfredo's wrote, we caught the train to get solicitors to sign the papers. Next day, she was diagnosed with COVID. Oh. Well, I mean, if she's still with us, I hope everything's, works out okay. Alfredo's wrote, are crop circles just giant QR codes? Yes. Yeah, so there was a story, which I'll put in my story things, but I can't remember the guy's name. I'll find it. And he basically, long story short, he kept getting taken up, abducted by aliens, and they were showing him these symbols. You might have seen my video on it. And these symbols, basically, a handful of symbols, and he could read a full book just by looking at these symbols, as opposed to reading our writing left from right. So yeah, there's definitely there. I don't know how he did it, but he got taught to learn it, apparently, which makes a lot of sense because, well, if you watch my videos, I did one where it shows that the writing, if it stays directly in front of you, you can read so much quicker than you can read left to right. So yeah, we're not great at. Down the line, we'll end up with a different language, I think. Tugwash wrote, cinema prayers, mums are precious. Yeah, thank you. Cassie's wrote, what about rods? Thank you for asking that. Go number 1 in the class for that. I think someone once before asked about it. But basically, I looked into rods. Oh, what was it? 2008, something like that. I was looking into rods. So for those of you who don't know, these are long streaks of thin rods, type looking things, that dart all over the place and then can actually change angle and stuff like that. You find them out in rural areas, out in I've seen them by rivers, by waterfalls and things like that. I'm not physically seeing them. You sort of seem to capture them on camera. Anyway, so I did my research back then. However, as time moved on, I kept doing more and more research and realising that cameras now don't pick them up. Cameras back then did. And I think I might have caught one or two, because I used to do filming with bigger cameras and smaller cameras. And the smaller cameras are the ones that seem to pick up, the old high 8, V8s, VHS-Cs, VHS. Cameras used to pick them up, but when you start getting to the digital cameras, such as the mini DVs and things like that, or DV cams, you don't pick them up anymore. And obviously mobile phones, there's more people with mobile phones than there were back in the day with analog cameras. So my conclusion on the rods were, because of the frame rates as well, and it's sort of lots to do with as you go on, iris and exposure and things like that. Bottom line, my conclusion was that it was just insects that was streaking across, and the frame rate weren't quick enough to capture them. Yeah, I know. I was gutted because I thought these were cool, but I just can't. The logic now, the fact that no one shows them anymore because we've got different types of cameras that can actually capture frame by frame without. See, there's a thing called interlace and progressive as well. So it's where you stitch one frame, so the first frame and the third frame are stitched to make the second frame, which is what used to happen. So you don't get a full clear image, you get a joint image, whereas now we've got progressive as opposed to interlaced, where progressive basically means you see frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, clear as day. It doesn't need to mix. So yeah, as you can probably tell, my other life is to do with filming. Sorry, waffled on there. Alfredo's wrote, "Mother is the name for God on the lips and hearts of children everywhere." Ah. Urum has wrote, "What do you think about Cain?" And that's Kanye. It's too strange to be a coincidence. I don't. I don't know. I'm guessing you're not on about Cain as in Cain and Abel. I don't know what Cain you're referring to. Sorry, if it's a modern thing that's on TV, I don't really watch TV. Sorry. Ellie's wrote, "The Book of Enoch says Jesus is Lucifer." Your thoughts, please. I don't know what book you've read, but I've never read that. The Book of Enoch actually was done before Jesus was around, so I would like you to point that particular part out. I mean, I've read Book of Enoch loads of times, never come across that. Wow. So if anything to do with Lucifer, it would have been one of the Anunnakis, possibly Anzu, who was the one that led a rebellion and ended up stealing the Tablets of Destiny. If anyone, if one person, if more than one, then possibly there was a group of people that led the I don't know what you want to call it, the campaign for the Ijiji to come down and steal human women and have their wicked way with them. So there was a group of people there. So if you're gonna, but I would probably more than likely go with Anzu. So yeah, not. I mean, I'd love you to point that bit out to me in the Book of Enoch. I mean, I've done videos on Patreon page where I read it out and break it down for people, and I don't recall it saying that. And again, Book of Enoch is older. You got to remember, the Book of Enoch was the original, or should have been in. Some people say should have been in as the original Bible. In fact, it's the Ethiopian Bible that they still use, along with other texts in there to make it up, but which predates Jesus. So for them to say that someone's coming, again, I don't remember reading that. Someone's coming and is going to be Lucifer. That means Lucifer wasn't already around at that point. Do you see what I mean? So that means there was no devil, evil, Lucifer, whatever you want to call him, until Jesus came around, which was only 2,000 years ago. So all those people had no hell, really, which they didn't anyway. There was no... The underworld is not hell. There is no hell. That was made up by priests to keep people visiting them and giving them gifts and money and everything else to keep them rich. But yeah, if you could show me where it says that in the Book of Enoch, I would be very much appreciated. Obviously, I must have missed it every time I read it. Or maybe I read it wrong, but I would love to know. Alfreda's wrote, why did God invent mums? Sorry. Why did God invent mums? Because he couldn't be everywhere at once. Yeah, multitasking, yeah. Uh, healing Connections wrote God and bad, light, dark energy. And then Sherry's wrote to Ellie, Lucifer is the feminine side of Jesus, the masculine Aphrodite. See, I struggle with that again. Aphrodite was before the Bible. Aphrodite was 3000 BC. So that's clearly 3000 before Jesus. So I think people, just my own opinions, I think people seem to put what they want into whatever they want and stick with it. But to me, I kind of just doesn't work for me. Right, right now, I will let you know. I don't know what that's referring to. Josia has wrote, what do you think about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth? Yeah, again, I've done videos breaking them down on my Patreon page. Very enlightening, to be honest. Very enlightening. There's different translations of them out there, which I've read all of them many times, and I think to some degree it's correct. Now I know, in fact, I saw a TikTok today which really wound me up, and it said Thoth's spaceship is underneath the Great Pyramid, and this is why I would rather listen to me than other TikTok users, because if you read the actual Emerald Tablets of Thoth, he did not say the Great Pyramid. In fact, in order for him to have said the Great Pyramid, because that's what we call it, that's a modern term. I don't know why I bother some. So that's a modern term. So in order for him to have pinpointed which particular pyramid he put a spaceship, if he even did, which I doubt he did, and according to, so I won't go into details, but it's supposed to be under Sphinx as well. But anyway, so he would have had to have said Khufu's pyramid if it was indeed Khufu's pyramid, which we know it wasn't. So in other words, all he said was, and if you believe the translation, because obviously there are some elements of translations that are not quite correct, and the logic of him burying a perfectly good spaceship underneath a pyramid is crazy, absolutely crazy. Because back when the Emerald Tablets of Thoth was going, there was still the wars going on between Marduk and Anana and whatever else. So I do not believe he may have put a chariot underneath the pyramid or underneath the Sphinx, but certainly not a spaceship. I mean, even if it wasn't working, now he apparently, so he go and get it, and again there was no, you bury it under a pyramid, and the only way to bury it under a pyramid is either to build a pyramid over it or dig down at an angle and then go and bury it there, in which case what was the point of burying it under the pyramid unless you're using that as a guide stone to wherever it was. But the logic, anyway, sorry, I know I digress. So anyway, that person on their TikTok video said it was on the Great Pyramid, and of course I had to write on there and say wrong. He did not stipulate which pyramid. For all we know, we haven't even found the pyramid that he's talking about, or it's been destroyed. So for people to assume, this is why I like our true history, because he doesn't assume anything. Sherry's wrote Hermes and Aphrodite, i.e. hermaphrodite. Yeah, they did have some, didn't they? For those of you who don't know, hermaphrodite was the original pansexual, I guess. Now there would be three genders if you include hermaphrodites, technically, to be fair, because they have both parts of organs. They're just greedy. Tugwash has wrote, according to my calculations, June 2025. I don't know what that was referring to, if that's Jesus coming back. I doubt if you'd give us a date, really. I mean, pencil me in, guys. WD has wrote to Ali, the devil will come in the form of Jesus to deceive and lead everyone into darkness. I would have said it would have come in the form of a little guy wearing glasses, billionaire, likes to open windows. And that's Brand Camacho has wrote, hey back. Right Now has wrote, what if no matter if you're a monk or a crooked elite, same fate awaits? Uh, Not necessarily, because if you believe in the fact that they could possibly or transfer your light energy, being your soul, your hard drive, into another body, which I actually believe they did. They were doing that in Area 51 on one of the levels, and I've heard stories from abductees as well. So if they can do that and put it into a younger cloned body of you, then the elites are going to live a lot longer than we are, in which case their fate is not sealed, because their memories, because of the perfect example, what I was trying to say earlier, is stored on the hard drive. So they will then wake up with the same memories and personality as they did with from the person that just died. And that's why you get a lot of elites probably wanting us to die pretty quick before they die, so they can go back and look younger and no one knows. Cassie's wrote, and no one will know the time and date. Agree, spirits have not come back because is here Christos in all. Do you know, I've seen that word Christos a lot now, and I don't know what Christos is. I'm guessing it's Christ, our Saviour, maybe. But he's not doing a very good job saving us, because I would have liked the people of Auschwitz to be saved. Who does he save? Is he pick and choosing? I mean, talk about people moaning about Superman choosing who he wants to save. Do you see what I mean? It's like he's going to make more enemies than he will, because if he comes down and saves certain people and other people die, their family's going to be hating him. You sod, why the hell did you let them die but save those ones? If he comes down and doesn't save anyone, everyone's going to say, you sod, you let everyone die. If he saves everyone, which he hasn't done already, because there's thousands and millions of people that's already died in stupid, needless wars, then people will say, why didn't you save the people before? Why are you saving us now? What's so special now? What's in it for you? That's the way I would see it. Scrolling down. Right Now is right. History is literally his story, and now is literally his now. So be what it may, it is what it is. That was hard. Sorry. Lewis is right. I found out that two of my friends are H negative, and both are heavy drinkers, like to zone out. Chat with Philomena on that. She would knows everything about that. Hi Jade. Any thoughts on what the word Lord means from the Bible? Yes, absolutely. So I've read out the original tablet where Enki turns round after being very proud of himself. He says, I am the Lord. Enki said that. I've read that out. You can go read it yourself. That predates the Bible. I am the Lord. So either he was aware of the Lord and decided to take his name in vain, or Enki is the Lord and we've all got it mixed up in the Bible because we've got the original text that we should be reading, but everyone reads the man-made versions of the original text. So literally he says it predates it. He says, I am the Lord. He was really happy with himself. I've read the paragraph out, so you can go and read it. I mean, there's lots of lords every time, you know. And in fact, even Enlil called him was called Lord at some point. So pretty much everything leads to the Anunnaki as opposed to an almighty being. Andrew's wrote, hi Andrew, nice of you to join. Alstia. I'm terrible at pronunciation. Do you think they're going to disclose themselves soon? Aliens or Anunnaki? No and no. No. I mean, you've got the government talking about crap at the moment about motherships and whatever else, but that's just their plan. It's a chess game. Or a lot of people are falling for it. So, no. Sherry's wrote 7:30, so I'm an hour behind. This is live. Thank you for joining. Sam has wrote, the only love I ever experienced in my whole life is the love I have for all. Never, sorry. The only love I ever experienced in my whole life is the love I have for all, never reciprocated. It's exhausting. You know, I feel your pain. I mean, I'm class myself as a very nice person, and I always think of others first and everything else. The sad truth of the matter is, when I'm dead, it ain't gonna make much difference. I could, you know, look at animals. They can go and do whatever they want. They can kill another animal if they want to. Just look at a killer wow. They'll play tennis literally with a sea lion. I don't know if you've seen that. They whack them so high. They can do that. They're not sitting there thinking, you know, I'm going to be punished later on. I should be good. They do what they want. So really, being good isn't the answer, in my opinion, after all my years of living. Because the people that's not good, Mr. Gates, are the ones sitting in the yachts and probably going to have the reincarnation with the soul being transferred to a younger body. They're the ones, the greedy people. And we say that because I pay my rent, I pay my electric to greedy people who bumps up the electric prices when there's no need to. And the petrol people that bump up the prices when there's no need to, and so on and so on and so on. So I hear what you're saying about the love you experience, but there's no point really, because once you're gone, no one's going to thank you. I know it sounds really sad, but that's what I've learned in my life. So I've tried to teach my daughters that you know, be nice, be kind, but don't give yourself over. You know, because someone will do it to you, they'll screw you over. So you might as well be prepared and have the best life you can. Sorry, I know it sounds bad. Tug has wrote, the stars begin blinking to the beat of Dance Monkey and gathered closer. I sense they're laughing. I don't know what Dance Monkey is. Sorry, I know. I think it's a song, but is it that squealy one? I think I've heard it once or twice. Alfredo's wrote yeah, that's why I didn't read it out the first. That's why I didn't put it out as a tinnitus. Yeah, thanks for that, Alfredo. Even you breaking it down, I struggle. Post, yes, I am bad at pronunciation. Postal was wrote really cool. Not sure what that's referring to. Hopefully that's me. Wes Sniper, very clever, because Wesley Snipes was in a film called Sniper, was he? I might be wrong. What about homeless dudes who don't have a phone? Oh, that's to do with they're if they haven't already. Well, we wouldn't know because we'll be in the houses when they do that, switch on that thing. So obviously the people that didn't take the you know what will wonder what the hell's going on when their partner goes crazy for a day. And this isn't me saying, this is scientific evidence showing what certain, I can't say it here because certain chemical that's, if it's inside your blood, will react and you basically turn into a zombie for 24 hours and then you die. And funny enough, last year or the year before, when all this was happening, the CDC actually on their website said what to do in a zombie apocalypse. Why the hell would they put that on there? And it wasn't for a giggle. They know what's coming. Lynn has wrote the reptilians have been removed. I'm guessing that's from Earth. I still don't see any here or evidence of it. Jess has wrote, hello everyone. Hello there. Tugwa has wrote, I'm living under some kind of doorway, realm. They make my ears ring. I don't trust doctors. Well, there's an old saying, isn't there? A cured patient is money lost, basically, because the doctors do get paid by the governments here in the UK for every person that they sign up, and every time someone talks to them, they get paid. So even if they don't cure you, they get paid. Postal has wrote, we are not going to die. I pray you're right, but Just look at the chess pieces. You got the banks are setting it up. Everything's queuing up the Great Reset. If anyone remembers that, if no one's putting all these pieces together, then I feel I wish I was them. Really, I wish I didn't put all these pieces together. But you got all the pieces, the trains that are crashing into each other because there's so much out there that's. Bear has wrote, do you think Yahweh is just a god that claimed dominance over the dimensions universe? So, Zachariah Sitchin believes Yahweh is the creator of everything. Not what's in the Bible, forget the Bible. The creator of everything. The Bible talks about the Anunnaki. I've broke that down so many times now. If anyone's watched any of my videos, you know that I'm right. And it's not just me being right. It's there. It's not that I'm right. It's literally, I've shown recently in one of my videos the creation story from the Bible where it's like 7 days and he rests on the seventh. And then I show the actual translations, not by Sitchin, of the actual tablets where it literally says what happens and stuff. So Sitchin believes Yahweh is the creator of everything. I'm unsure. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not saying he's right. He's a marvelous person. He probably is right, but the problem is they do use Yahweh. If you actually look at the Sumerian tablet translations, there is something very similar to Yahweh in there. Same as Nibiru. Sitchin spells it with an I. In a lot of the tablets, the translations is without an I, so it's Nibru. So I don't know is the answer to your question. Sorry, after all that, you've probably been waiting ages. Healing has wrote, yes, hologram to say we're being invaded, but not real to activate vax people to pass. I don't know if you've been listening to me, but if you come to your own conclusion on that, I absolutely 100% agree with exactly what you just said. That's exactly how it's going to play out, in my opinion. Postal's right. I believe in aliens, but some of these theories are too much. Read the knowledge book. See, the problem is reading someone else's book. When I've even spoke to abductees myself personally. I would rather go direct to the source than read someone's book who's come to a conclusion that they want to make sure it fits their conclusion, I guess. There's not many people out there that don't have an agenda at the beginning of writing a book. See, me, I'm open. If someone comes to me and says the Anunnaki were black and this is because, and I look at the evidence and I'm wrong, I'll say, wow, I will change that. But not many people want to do that. I know David Icke can't because he's too popular now. So, me going to read that book there, the knowledge book, is written by someone, and whatever his conclusions is may not be the same as mine. So just because it's in a book doesn't mean it's right. Postal's wrote, we can't stop whatever's going to happen. We technically could if there's a handful of people that we need to take out pretty much simultaneously, but it's not going to happen. But if we did, we could take them out for dinner, if you get what I'm saying. Wink, wink. Take them out for dinner, and then a lot of these problems will certainly be put on hold for a long period of time. But it will someday. Another power monger will take their place, unfortunately. Triple X Charlie has wrote, I could listen to you all day, laugh out loud. Oh, thank you. I feel sorry for you. I doubt if I could. Lou 2 has wrote, the elites worship Saturn. Is that right? Depends on. I mean, if you've got different groups that worship different things, obviously they worship. Sorry, Satan. I'm guessing you mean not Saturn. They seem to worship a serpent, dare I say, demon, evil creature of some description. What that is, I don't know. Why they do it, I don't know. Are they sick doing it? Yes. Should they really have their meetings at a Starbucks instead of dressing up in robes and doing possible fake sacrifices. When I say possible, you get what I'm saying. Yeah, they should go off to Starbucks. They've got enough money to go to Starbucks and have a coffee and do their chats there instead of all dressing up. Grown men, leaders of countries, dressing up in front of this freaking idol. Massive. I don't know if you've seen some of the images that's been sneaked out, but the massive idol of some sort of snaky type creature. Really, anyone in their right mind would say, oh, come on. But they're not in their right mind. Why? I don't know. Lutis wrote, Masons also worship Saturn, I'm sure. Yeah, like I say, different groups worship. Is it all the same thing? Different images, different carvings of it, but same thing, same entity. I know, what's his name? David Wilcox believes that to be true. That there's a demonic, and I say demonic evil because there's no such thing as a demon, because it's a name we give to something that's evil. A demonic creature from another dimension. That's his version, and he thinks the elites are believing in that and deliberately doing whatever they're doing to eventually release this demon into our universe, which, no matter how smart you are, e.g. millionaire, leader of a free country, and you're in these groups, this demon, if there was such a thing that's from another dimension, do you think that's going to say to them, do you know what, lads, I'm going to not hurt you, I'm only going to hurt everyone else? Or do you think it's just going to say, right, thanks very much, I'm having you lot, and I'm going to take over? Are they that thick to trust something that they class as a demon or a Satan to come into this? Are they that thick? I don't know. Right Now is wrote, not on something unidentified, laugh out loud. I don't know what that was referring to. Postals wrote Giants 2. Not sure what that was referring to. Loud Tears wrote, I watched an amazing documentary called Rite of Passage with the Pygmies in it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not, obviously there is a race of pygmies, but they're not as small as these other entities that apparently lived. Triple X Charlie's wrote, I remember seeing the pygmy skeleton. That was when I was talking about where they said it was at the base of Mount Ararat. Loud Tears wrote, they are tiny, and then Sherry's wrote Peru. Thank you, Sherry. I couldn't remember exactly where it was, but thank you very much. I knew someone would know. Panache has wrote, oh God, don't make me pronounce it. Jundes, Duendes, Jundes. I have no idea what that is. Just about pronounce it. Sorry. Alfredo's wrote, Mexico. The correct name for the little people are the Wombles. Is that the name for the Mexican one? I know there's so many names. I'm never bothered memorising them all, but okay, that's cool, because we had the Wombles over here, and obviously in the States they did the Smurf cartoon. So yeah, that's cool. Sherry's wrote of Wimbledon, yeah. Wombles of Wimbledon Green. Right Now's wrote, all that ever is smoke cover for the entirety, real stripping down of people's lives to save. Yep. Right Now's wrote, till one has had enough of their BS, they believe the esoteric stuff along with their agenda of power. They do indeed, and that means insanity or schism. Yeah, Alfreda's wrote, pansexual attraction to short order cooks. Very good. Trust you, Alfredo, to come up with a joke out of that. Sherry's wrote, kitchen utensils. Yeah, pans. There are car sexual people, aren't there? That fancy cars. Weird. Alfredo's wrote, Kisha in are the African Bushmen in comedy classic The Gods Must Be Crazy. Oh, wow. Yes, I remember that. But yeah, in order for them to be African, they would have then been in the same place where the Anunnaki created the first human. And if the only civilization that could actually write was Sumerian stroke Anunnaki, then not to say that we haven't found any evidence of them as a civilization. So when someone says that they were the first humans that predated the Anunnaki, I would probably say no, because the Anunnaki, if they were in Africa, would have probably used them more so than the Neanderthal, because obviously half the work's already done. In fact, they probably wouldn't even need to genetically modify that race you just mentioned there, the Cohesion, because they would have obviously been smart enough to be hunter-gatherers, and therefore would have been smart enough to do the work for the Anunnaki, and they therefore not needed to be created. So I would still say that the Anunnaki created the first smart enough creatures on this planet. However, as I have mentioned before, there is a tablet that does talk about a feline type creature that has the intelligence of humans, which I will do a video on. Kitty has wrote, please talk about doorways. I'm guessing you're referring to the ancient stone doorways that don't actually have anywhere it goes. It's just a wall, but it's a door frame with sort of like a foot or two going back, and then the wall. I don't know if that's what you're referring to. Pretty much, there's some in many different places. In fact, even Jordan has these. India has these in not temples, in caves, where there's a cave and then they cut out a door frame, but it doesn't go anywhere. It's just a wall behind. And the stories even there are that you hum a tune or you make a sound, certain frequency, and then you get teleported, or someone comes through that doorway from somewhere else, if that's what you're talking about. So yeah, it's not just a Inca thing, or it's not just a Mayan thing, or it's not just a it's around different places, so it's not just a one-off story. Hopefully that's what you was referring to. I don't want to waffle on too much, because if I'm not right, then you'll probably hate me. Healings wrote, is this pre-recorded? Can't see any of the comments he's reading out. Yes, it is live. It's always live. Just I read every single comment, and so when you joined, you probably didn't even see half the comments. I'm over 2 hours probably behind. Alfredo's wrote, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Just for your information, yes, I remember the old book. And I bet Venus smells a bit better than Mars, knowing what men are like in the toilets and what women are like in the toilets. I bet Venus smells lovely. 50% half-witters wrote, it's an assumption. I would love to know what it was that you're saying about. Obviously, I'm just 2 hours behind. I can't remember what I was talking about at that point. Kitty's wrote, about the blue-skinned deities. They were deemed ones that were passed on or brown bread dead. Yeah, I mean, I have heard of, obviously, blue-skinned aliens and whatever else, but the person that was talking about the blue-skinned earlier was saying, also in the same paragraphs that he was talking about, was that it was an Anunnaki ship. So that's why I was questioning that. Battery's dying. 20%. So just while everyone's listening, I haven't finished yet, but while everyone's listening, I have a Patreon page. There's so many videos on there now, good stuff. Like I say, documentaries on that I've created myself using my own research. Everything you need to know about mermaids, and it's not just mermaids. When you dig deep, like I did in the video that's edited and everything else by myself, you'll see that it brings up other hybrids and stuff like that. But also I've done documentary on everything you need to know about spirits for 6 hours long. I've done videos on the glass balls on the moon, which you may not know about. I've done so much stuff that I don't talk about here on my Patreon page. And yes, I do the Patreon page simply because I have a website I have to pay for, that has all my other videos that you don't have to go to TikTok to see. You can just go there. It's outtruehistory.co.uk. And obviously my Patreon page is called Our True History. So, but either way, you can get to it through outtruehistory.co.uk. Right, back on with the questions. People chatting to each other. Bascom has wrote, the Anunnaki created humans. They capped our second chromosomes to be able to live for 120 years. Yeah, you're right. Well done. You've obviously done your homework there. Well done. Yeah, can't argue with you. Bascom has wrote, Gilgamesh was a genetic mutation. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. Why would he be genetic mutilation when the Anunnaki were blonde hair and blue eyes? Again, proving that they were blonde hair and blue eyes. This is why it's easier to say that they're blonde hair and blue eyes, because people like this has just literally agreed with me. Yeah, so his mother was an Anunnaki, which meant she bred with a human, because he was, dare I say it, a halfling or whatever you want to call him. Yeah, so she was his mum, and he wanted long life, Gilgamesh. So that would explain the blonde hair and blue eyes, because his mum would have had blonde hair and blue eyes. Yeah, so I wouldn't say a mutation. Anunnaki Hunters was based on aliencarvings.com. A hominid was created between a grey and a lizard. Yeah, I'm chatting to... Thank you for that. Hi, nice of you to join. I'm doing a live chat with aliencarvings.com on this Saturday at 7 p.m. UK time. It's going to be a must-watch, because he's going to go around and show me his carvings, and we're going to have a chat about it. Obviously, hopefully some of my knowledge and his knowledge and his carvings, we should be able to have a great discussion. I did tell him I'm not there to debunk him. I'm not there to say they're fake. I'm not there to say anything like that, because that's not my place. I'm there to see what he's got to say, and just chat about it, really. I'm not going to try and knock him down or anything. That's not what I want to do. So it's going to be really good, because he's got some carvings that I'll be interested to see. Obviously, I will quiz him on them. I'm not going to, just say, okay, and take his word that, for everything. Like that. Oh, this is an alien, and it's. But so, for example, where he shines these lights on these artifacts that he's got, carvings, and it shines up as ultraviolet, for example. My questions would be like, I would love to know whether the rock that was carved from shows up as ultraviolet, because we're assuming that the artifact is ultraviolet because it's been carved for a reason, maybe brushed over with something to make it light up under ultraviolet or whatever. But I would like to know whether or not the original rock that it came from, is got that same, because obviously we're assuming that that's a part of it because it's the artifact, but it may not be part of it. It may just be generic throughout the stone that it was carved from. So things like that. So it's going to be a really good conversation with him. I'm looking forward to that. Triple X has wrote, advanced might be the word. I'm not sure what I was talking about 2 hours ago. June has wrote, have humans been able to unfuse the two fused chromosomes? Just curious what might happen. Really good question. Go number 3 in the class for that. So basically, as the person earlier said, that humans were genetically manipulated to stop us from growing any older. I did actually read the tablets from that. I hadn't read them, and then about 6 months ago I read it. So yes, they definitely did manipulate us again. This was after the flood, but prior to that, there was no, as I say, Noah lived for 900 years, so that was But we have two fused chromosomes. Now, whether or not that was from the Abzu when they first created them, or whether that was to do with the cutting our lifespan down, I don't know. But June is asking, has anyone actually tried to unfuse those two chromosomes to make us live longer? I have heard recently a lot of whistleblowers saying about the longevity of life, and that they can now they've done something to our DNA to allow people to live a lot longer. So I would assume they've probably done. Now, I did hear other things where people say, "Oh, they've took, like they've learnt from octopuses where it loses a limb and it regenerates," and I've heard all of those kind of things. But could it be as simple as what you just said, figuring out how to unfuse the chromosomes, and thereby we live 900 years again? It's a really good point. I don't know the answer to that because they haven't really said how they've done it, but they do seem to believe, the whistleblowers, that it has been done. Joseph wrote Egyptian Book of the Dead much. Not sure what the question is on that. I'm fully aware of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I did a whole series of videos on the Book of the Dead, breaking it all down for people and everything. So I'm not quite sure if there's a question there. Bassett Commons wrote, I think all religions came from the Sumerian tablets. I do too. And if not from the Sumerian tablets, from just looking at, so for example, Shiva comes out of a sort of an egg-shaped craft, or a, I don't know what you call it, an elongated egg-shaped craft and things like that. So I think some of the religions might be just based on visual and storytelling, as opposed to directly from the translations of the Anunnaki. But I do certainly think, obviously, the Christian or Catholic has got a lot from the Sumerian tablets, because we've got the original tablets to match that with. So yeah, I think you're right to a point. 50% half witters wrote, you keep cookies in your shed. I have no idea what that's referring to. Jazzers wrote, random access memory isn't it? That was when I was talking about the RAM on your computer. Read access memory, is it? Or did I say random? It might be read access memory. Sorry if I said it wrong, but it's one of those two. Did I say random? I shouldn't have said random. It was read access memory. If I said random, I apologise. Tug Wishers wrote, I talk to God. Yeah, that's why God said nobody will believe it, but I never thought I'd be reading. Born has wrote, can you speak on Tataria? I can, very simply. I looked into it. I've asked people for evidence. 0 people's got back to me. I mean, seriously, 0 people's got back to me. They tell me to go and look at YouTube and stuff. I don't do that. That's not how I work. So, yes, Tataria was an empire, Mongolian, 500 years ago. Advanced tech, no evidence whatsoever. Yes, people probably made things like Tesla coils. Was that part of the Tatarian Empire? Probably not. Was it found in Russia? Possibly. Did they have mobile phones as purported by people? No. Is there any evidence of the mobile phones? Only photoshopped images, which I proved by doing one myself, and people fell for it. So yeah, there's no evidence. I can't help it. I go by evidence. And yes, was there mud floods? Yes. Was there mud floods that the people show images of? No, because they lie. They show images of buildings that were carved into mud, and they pretend that, they add that to the collection of buildings that were covered over by mud. And yes, back in the day when we didn't make a concrete jungle of everything, there were mud slides, because obviously when it rains and if you've got a hill, you have mud slides. Tugwatch wrote, the Bible's 24/7, and knowing that the Bible is a mysterious masterpiece, life is a wild world. Born has wrote, we've reached to the point of civilization where we are God but don't know. Yeah, I mean, like I say earlier, if you was listening, we can actually create life from chemicals, from nothing. Obviously, it's something, chemicals, but the point is there's no life prior to that. Mark has wrote, do you believe Nibiru is returning? I'm hearing more and more about it. Oh, I mean, I've been hearing about it since I started researching. Not in your lifetime. You ain't going to worry about it in your lifetime. Or your son's lifetime. Possibly even your son's lifetime. And forgive me if they turn out to be they. I'm just assuming. Yeah. Spinderella has wrote, what is the Egyptian connection, please, to the Anunnaki? Well, Ptah was Enki, Ra was Marduk. They were the Anunnaki, and then Ra basically had children who then had, I can't remember the middle ones' names. They weren't that important, but then they ended up having Osiris, Set, and Isis, which were sort of half sister, and they had their little fight, and then Isis ended up having Horus, or Horon as it was originally named in the Sumerian tablets, and so on. So that's generally, that's the connect. I could go on, but my battery is low and I'm probably going to finish any second soon. So again, reminding everyone, I do have a website, outerhistory.co.uk. If anyone is interested in listening to live chats, I've got them on there. They're on Spotify, they're on YouTube as well. Borners wrote, not to sound SJ Wish, but do you think there is an occult reason for the world hating black people? Oh, okay. What's my thoughts on why people hate black people? You do have to remember that it's the other way around as well. We can't just say, because when I do these videos and I put about Anunnaki and stuff, I get black people hating me. And no, honestly, they do. They say you people, this and the other. So we have to take it that it's both ways. Now, whether or not it started one way or another, hard to say. We do have evidence of stone tablets that had slaves. Now, were they dark people having white people as slaves back in Sumerian times? Doesn't say. Were it black people, having black people as slaves? Doesn't say. And was it white people having white people as slaves? Doesn't say. So obviously, could it be down to the slave situation? Now, I'll be honest, the tablets, and this is just me going by the tablets. So, as I've said before, white people, if it wasn't for the darker skinned people, this is my opinion, we wouldn't be here, because the Anunnaki wouldn't have bred with the darker skinned people. So that's, they are our ancestors. Now, the 7 that was first created, or first born humans to the 7 female Anunnakis were 7 males and 7 females, and they, in the tablets, actually say that basically the over 200,000 years, the inbreeding caused those people to be a bit out there with the fairies. They didn't say that words, but that's what I'm saying. Their mind wasn't as sharp as it probably could have been because of the inbreeding, which is understandable. Nothing, it could have happened to whites, pinks, any colour. That's just what happens if you inbreed, and it's not their fault. They was only given 7, 7 men and 7 women to breed between, so it's not their fault. Nothing wrong with them whatsoever, other than the fact that the inbreeding over 200,000 years. So down the line, just being devil's advocate, and don't hate me for this, but when the Anunnaki bred with the humans and called the ones that they had children more civilized, it clearly means that and they taught those ones, they taught Adam and Eve, they taught Cain, Abel, Set, so they could be taught a lot more than the ones, because of the inbreeding didn't do them any favors. Now, did the whites, with their civilized knowledge, abuse the darker ones that may be a bit in the head? I don't know what words to use, but not as mentally sharp as the white ones, and that, again, not their fault whatsoever. Did the white people, the Anunnaki offspring, use them as slaves back then? I would probably say yes, more than likely. More than likely. Because the Anunnaki were already using them as slaves. So for them to not use them as slaves and just let them go about their business, I can't see them doing that. I would imagine they would use them as slaves. And down the line, did those people, when they bred with those humans and have children, did those children see what was going on and think, you know what, my white father is really bad to my dark-skinned mother, and start hating on the white father? Possible. You've asked me the question. I'm just going through it in my head, how it possibly could have played out. And then over time, a rift got divided. Could it have been like that? I don't know, but that's how I would probably perceive it way back then. If there was any animosity between the two skin colours back then, there might not have been, but if there was, that's how I would probably perceive it. If that makes sense. Eagle Fuffles wrote, Lucifer and Satan are not the same, and then Born has wrote, they're the same but different, just like Abrahamic God. And then Eagle Fuffles wrote, keep on reading. Soul Healers wrote, still the same culture throughout history. AXG, sorry if I'm rushing, it's just my battery's going to die. AXG has wrote, Lucifer was the captain of the Anunnaki Royal Guard. I would love to see, and I'm not doing this to call you up, but I would love to see where you got that information from, because obviously I want to learn. It's not me knocking you down by saying you don't have that information and that you guessed it. I'm just saying I would love to see it. If you could send me any post, just type on any video of mine and just say, here's where I got the information from. I would love to read that, honestly, I really would. Dean Blemmings has wrote Lucifer. Cherries wrote, not the same person but duality. They always come in masculine and feminine. Lewis has wrote, Bob Lazar mentioned that one of the UFOs he saw appeared to be ancient. I can't remember him saying that. Did he definitely say that? Because technically, when you're looking at a futuristic UFO, I mean, because clearly we can't do it, so it's clearly tech that we can't do. How the hell would he know just by looking at it that it's ancient? Did you get my logic in that? If I saw a UFO, I would not know whether that was built yesterday or 20,000 years ago or millions of years ago. I wouldn't know, because it's tech, A, alien tech, and B, far superior. So I doubt if he would have said it would have been ancient, because he would have needed to have seen, a patina on it, for example, or I was here in 44,000 BC or something silly on that. But no, I don't see the logic in him seeing it as an ancient craft. Sherry's wrote, Jesus was the masculine, Lucifer the light bearer was the feminine. Kane has wrote true religious history. And then the real Kathy has wrote, keep searching for the answers. It help to wake you up. Sherry's wrote 8:30. Thank you very much. I'm 40 minutes behind. I'm trying to go as quick as I can now because I've got 10% left. And I've got to chat to someone tonight as well after this. The real Kathy's wrote, we are 3.5 billion years of DNA in your body. We are ascended from the Anunnaki. I agree, there's probably 3.13 billion years of DNA. Yeah, I would agree with that. And we are ascended. I wouldn't say ascended, I would say manipulated. But yeah. Dean has wrote, Superman might think like the rest of us and think some people are sods. Yeah, that was when I was talking about whether or not Superman chooses who to save, and so should Jesus, as he probably will if there is such a comeback, which is not going to happen. Tug has wrote, no, there's only two churches, that of God and that of Satan, kingdom against kingdom. Kane has wrote, you can find the similarities in every religion. Abrahamic religions are also the sun worshipping. Pam, I'm only Pam has wrote, Sorry, I'm rushing because the battery's on 10%, 9% now. Pam wrote, if we are, you know what, in the arm, and we live close to a, you know what, tower, are they going to flip a switch and we're done? I don't want to say this, but I'm praying I'm wrong. I'm praying I am wrong. Kane has wrote, no, you're wrong. Sorry, I hope I'm wrong. I pray to myself that I'm wrong. And yes, I do identify as a god, which I have to admit probably trumps everything else. So I should get, best seats in a restaurant for that. Surely, no. I don't know what toilet I would go in if I identify as a god. I'm not sure how that would work. Born as wrote, are you on the last or right hand path? I have no idea what that means. Probably something from the Bible, but again, I go back to, I don't know what that means. Kane has wrote, no, Lucifer and Satan are two separate entities. Missy's put a little clappy hand with heart. Thank you very much. Hopefully that's for me. Sherry's wrote, yes, you're a very naughty boy. Well, I remember what I was talking about then. That was, and I think I said it to Sherry as well, didn't I? Scrolling down, Kane has wrote, you have to study ancient religions as well. I am trying to, certainly Indian at the moment, and as I say, the Hindus and whatnot. I'm trying to learn that, but Christianity and that came way after the Anunnaki. There's no point because we know for a fact that man has changed it. We know for a fact, and each version down they changed it and edited it. So there's no point in me studying that. And the oldest. The Anunnaki never had, or the Sumerians never had religion, so it came from somewhere and it's probably man-made. Tuggers wrote, learn history, Rome has deceived everyone, you'll see, God is working on me. It's going to be mind-blowing. Yeah, I struggle with that, simply because there's 12 gods in Rome, so when you say Rome has deceived you, you'll see God is working. Yeah. Kane has wrote, you can't go by the Bible, which has been rewritten over and over by different cultures time and again. I don't, correct. Kane's wrote, start with the Sumerians, see whether they relate. Spot on, that's exactly what I do. Kane has wrote, then go to the Akkadian and the Babylonian to ancient Hebrew or Judaism. You sound like me, Kane. This is what I do. You're spot on. Then look at Egypt and the surrounding area. Sounds like me talking to me. Yes, that's what I do. That's what I've been doing 40 years, doing spot on. And I'm glad someone else has agreed that that's what you need to do. You have to. Spot on, well done. Go to the top of the class for that, actually. Well done. Born as wrote, Yahweh is the demurrage. 7% on the battery. Kane has wrote, see how they just regulate the same lessons and stories from prior. Yeah, spot on. Kane has wrote, yes, Yahweh is Enlil. I mean, that's where I'm leading towards, so you obviously done your homework. Well done. And then Keynes wrote, all religions were cults before accepted to the masses. I'm just going to see if you follow me. Doesn't say you follow me. You should, because you are talking the same as me here. Keynes wrote, it might be hard for some to hear. No, not for me. Keynes wrote, but it's different between intelligence and indoctrination. Borners wrote, do you think there's an occult reason for the perception of black people over 500 years? There's a occult reason. I do, in my heart, I think back in America, because obviously over here we didn't really have many black people. So in America, I think there was power-hungry people used, we're talking 500 years ago, used slaves and wanted to keep them as slaves, and these were white, greedy sods. Doesn't mean every white person's, a greedy sod that doesn't care, but I think, as I say, the power ones that seem to win through, that set the rules up and everything else, I think they were bad people and needed to be slapped down a bit. But again, not every single person, regardless of colour, is. Ancient Carvings just sent me a rose. I have mentioned, just one more time, I'll mention it again. Ancient Carvings, I am going to be doing a live chat with that person on Saturday, 7 p.m. UK time. It's going to be amazing. I'm really looking forward to it. I've seen a lot of his videos. I'm absolutely fascinated by his story on how, I've listened to his stories on how he started getting them and stuff on throughout his videos. So hopefully he will tell us all again, for those that don't know of him. But aliencarvings.com, I think it is, if anyone wants to go there. He's got his own website. Great. Sorry, I'll carry on quickly until the battery dies. 6%. Cain is right. Enlil was the god who hijacked Earth. I probably wouldn't say hijacked. I wouldn't say hijacked. Cain is right. And Enki was the savior who saved up. I'm trying to make me say his name. Upanishdan. Yeah, I'm terrible at pronunciation. Yeah, he was a king. But basically, Enlil didn't hijack. Enlil did his thing over in Mesopotamia. Enki did his thing in Africa, and then eventually, after the flood, they all ended up back in Mesopotamia. Borners wrote the serpent with the lion's head. It's the Demirage. Cain, before written history, humans used to practice animalism. I'd be interested to know more on how you come to that conclusion. Healings wrote, for them that they know, please try and sort out your food and water source. Problem is, if you're talking about what I think you're talking about, at some point we're going to run out. When they switch the power off and pretend that it's aliens, or they pretend it's solar flares or whatever it is. Kathleen's wrote, get your charger. Oh, bless you. I've got my boy to sort out for bedtime, and I've got to ring someone. But I do these lives. I've got loads of lives on my YouTube channel and everything else, where people ask me about Bigfoots and all sorts of stuff, which I haven't touched on today. But so I deliberately let it down because I have stayed up till 1 o'clock in the mornings before, because I can't help it. I have to reply to every question. So this is the only way I get off of the phone, is when I let it die. Otherwise I will literally be here all night, and I've got to let dogs out and stuff. So apologies, but do follow me, and you'll hopefully catch me another time. I'm on 5% now. 6%, 5%. Keynes wrote the worshipping of living creatures. Healing has wrote and learned to ride a horse. Just scrolling down, people chatting to each other. Kane has wrote Marduk was probably a person of colour. I wouldn't say that. I mean, his dad was white, with blonde hair, and we know that because when he had Noah, he was also blonde with blue eyes. Healing has wrote, this is also why they're trying to bring us the 15-minute cities so they can see more and switch the numbers on. Yeah, obviously Healing's well clued up on what's going on. Unfortunately, I wish he wasn't, because it just, sometimes ignorance is bliss, really. Kane has wrote how he was probably of coloured skin, question mark. I don't know what I was talking about. I could be 2 hours behind, and I've got 4%, so it's going to die in a second, so I'm just going to keep going. But outtruehistory.co.uk, feel free to go there and find everything you need there. Kane wrote, did she get that from a YouTube or TikTok video? Thank you, Sherry, for the rose. I don't know how long I'm behind. I don't know who she is. Sorry. Keynes wrote they were Mesopotamian. Keynes wrote, unless you truly believe they were aliens. Born as wrote, African writing systems were completely erased. Well, they did have a flood, in fairness, that literally covered everything, including the mines. Keynes wrote, where did you hear that? I'm probably an hour or two behind. I don't know what I said when you said, where did I hear that? Sorry, I don't know what it was I was talking about at that point. Panache wrote, e.g. 2 interviews from Project Camelot that say that Enoch was a person of colour and Noah albino. which Enoch. That's not to say Enoch wasn't. I didn't say. Remember, Enoch's not an Anunnaki. So this is where people go a bit funny. They assume that because possibly Enoch was dark skinned or pale, or olive skinned, they assume that the Anunnaki, which were not Enoch, were also the same, and that's the danger. They assume too much. Tugbush, I love your gentle soul. Oh, bless you. Thank you very much. Cain has wrote, in Enoch, Noah had a face and eyes of celestial ones, which is the Anunnaki. Born has wrote, mermaids are massive in Western African culture and Caribbean culture. They are called the Mama Wata. Yeah, I did it in my video on my Patreon page called Everything You Need to Know About mermaids. I actually even cover the Dogon tribe as well. I cover that and actually point out where I think I'm right, and the researchers that say that they point to Orion, because there's no way they would have known what star system way back when they first saw where. How the hell would mermaids point out where they come from as well, and how the hell would they fly a ship? So yeah. So I do cover all that in my mermaid video. And Tugs wrote, I don't believe in mermaids. You should watch my video. You'll be surprised. I was on the fence until I did the video, everything you need to know about mermaids, and now I believe there were mermaids. I mean, when you see it, you should be able to understand. Kane's right, I love mermaids. So it's going to die in a second, but thank you everyone. 2%. Thank you everyone for an enjoyable evening. Love chatting to you all. Sorry I didn't get to all your messages. Normally I do try my best, but hopefully you'll catch me another time. Follow me, and I do lives periodically, or just go and listen to my podcasts on Spotify, or you can find everything on my website, outtruehistory.co.uk, and join me for my live chat with aliencarvings.com next Saturday at 7 p.m. UK time. Really looking forward to it. It's going to be amazing. So don't forget to follow that gentleman as well. That'll be cool. So I'm going to shoot before it suddenly dies and kills my battery and everything else. Thank you for saying thank you. Thanks, Jane. I just see your message there. Thank you for joining. And Alfredo's just said thank you. You're welcome. And Kane has wrote, good chat, brother. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'd love to do follow me, Kane. You sound like you've got a hell of a lot of knowledge there, and pretty much the same saying as what I've been saying. So I'd be cool to chat to you. Lewis says thanks. Borna says thank you very much. Thank you guys. Thanks for the thanks. I do this just because I enjoy it. I don't sort of do it for the thanks or flowers or anything at all. I do it because I enjoy it. But brilliant. Thank you. Oh, thank you very much, guys. I'm reading the message at the bottom there. Thank you for healing, and thank you, Panache. And Sherry says thank you, sweetie. Yeah, you're great as well, Sherry. It's nice to have you on board, pointing me out where I go wrong. So that's great. Thanks very much. And name I didn't see before, Taiwaz has put some hearts. Thank you. Borners wrote, next live, I'd love to hear the African flood. Yeah, no problem. Just catch me and ask me. But yeah, I don't know when the next one is. But I know I'm doing the live with the gentleman. Keynes wrote, good energy coming your way, homie. Ah, thank you very much. Alfredo wrote, the biggest travesty was putting a live on Spotify when I came first, second, and third in the class. Yeah, amazing. Brilliant. I'm just looking at all the messages. It's going to cut off. Literally, it's 1%. So, thank you, guys. Catch you all again very, very soon. Take care, everyone. Thanks. Bye. Bye.